meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and I'm just laughing at myself because I used to make fun of my mother when she used to do her old lady finger dance, and there I am. I'm there doing the old lady finger dance, but you know, that's better than not doing the old lady finger dance. That's all I have to say about that. So thrilled to be here with you. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're coming to you live from a place in my home and several other places around the country today, in fact, and so excited to be here with you. It's such a privilege to have this time with you. We're going to be here live for the next hour talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective, and we're going to be talking to and about and with the entire autism community. Of course, that starts with individuals on the spectrum, but it extends to everyone who loves them. Isn't that a great thing? That we want to talk with anybody who's either on the spectrum or loves a person on the spectrum, because while we are all different and we all have different things and different agendas and different issues and different challenges and different strengths, we have one thing in common, and that is that we love individuals on the autism spectrum. We want to see them succeed. We want them to get the help and the support. We want to have them have the opportunity for jobs and for housing and for love and all of the good things in life, and to have things like discrimination and people deciding who they are and not treating them like individuals, for all of those things to go away. So we start with trying to minimize them and get around them and do all the things that we can do. But ultimately, the goal is for individuals on the spectrum to have the freedom to choose the things that they want to do and to be able to accomplish them. That's all. That's all. That's a big deal. It is to me anyway, because I'm a mom of an individual who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5. And it's funny, I wrote to a friend on Facebook this morning who does not have a child on the autism spectrum, but whose child 2 years ago was diagnosed with a devastating type of cancer. And she was just commemorating that it's been 2 years that she's been fighting. And I said to her, you know, becoming a mother changes you. You are not the same person afterwards. You are changed. Your soul is changed. Your entire way of thinking is changed. I think that your DNA rewires when you have a child, whether it's that you birthed them or somebody else birthed them. You know, you're changed. You're changed forever. But I think having a child with any kind of special needs, a child that you have to advocate for, I think that reveals who you truly are. And I think that when you have adversity yourself that you have to overcome, I think that that is the highest calling that there is. I had a mother who was born with both feet facing backwards, and I never knew her any way different. And by the time I met her, she had had 27 years to decide what that meant for her in the world. But frequently she was on crutches or in a wheelchair, and, you know, would have surgeries and would have full casts on one or both of her legs, and ultimately had to have knee replacements and hip replacements and shoulder replacements. You know, we called her the bionic woman. But that's who I was raised by. I never knew anything different. I never knew not to look at the world and take things for granted. I never looked at the world and assumed that everyone could get up that flight of stairs. And you know, it was a privilege to be raised by a woman who was looking at the world through eyes where she was, you know, having to make those choices and teaching us about what that was like. That was a privilege to be raised by her. So I am thrilled to be here with all of you. It is my privilege to be here and sort of be the telephone operator, but that is what I am. I'm not an expert. I'm certainly not an expert in autism, and I'm not an expert parent either. Let's not confuse that. We have a lot of experts on the show, and I've got a great one for you today that I'm always thrilled to welcome when she's available on Monday. Of course, I'm talking about Bonnie Yates, but please, and she's an expert in educational law. She's an attorney dealing with special education, and man, we have never needed those people more than we need them right now, don't we? So she's going to be here and answering some of your questions a little bit later on in the hour. But again, I'm not an expert. I, have been interviewing a lot of people, so I like to say that I have an informed opinion, and that entitles me to run my mouth. But I want you to know that I'm here with love. I want to connect you to what you need. So if you're looking for resources, if you have a question, please write in. We don't get to all of them, and I just have to be honest about that. The show has grown and grown and grown from its infancy, and we don't get to all of the questions, and that's unfortunate. But I do try to pay attention when you're persistent. Please feel free to email me if you feel like I'm neglecting your question. I've had people do that a couple of times recently. They're like, look, I wrote in 3 times. You didn't notice. Here's my question. Write into me, s.penrod@autism-live.com. I do the level best I can. I always like to say be patient, but the truth is I would rather you be persistent. So write into me, and if I don't write back to you, write into me again. Like, don't be afraid to do that. I'm never going to say, hey, you're pestering me, because I have a moral obligation to help those that I can. That was the deal that I made on my knees. I said, help me to help my child. And I promise if you do, I'll help whoever I can. So that's where I'm coming from. That's just what it's all about here. I do the level best I can, imperfect human being right here, but doing the level best that I can. And I know that you are too. Can I just tell you, you're doing a really great job. When I talk to some of you and I hear what you're going through, look, autism is difficult, no matter how old you are, how old your child is, this is a difficult thing. At a pandemic, excuse me very much. You guys are doing a great job. And you got to remind yourself that you're doing a great job. So that's what's going on here. Don't take me for the expert, but we have a big show for you. I do want to remind you that you can be writing into us right now to ask your questions. I already gave you my email, but there's lots of ways that you can be participating in the live show or participate when you're watching the show recorded, because many of you watch the show recorded. That's the vast majority of you, but some of you like it live, right? Because it's a little, anything could go wrong live, right? I don't know if you can see up on our wall, we have the theater sign there because that's my background, theater. And I love me some live theater because anything can happen, right? It's a very powerful, powerful thing. I love being live. No net, let's go. So anyway, if you want to talk to us live, I really encourage you. 2 of the best, fastest ways, especially right now, are to be on YouTube or Facebook. And our lovely producer, Traven, I know some of you have written in and you're like, I don't understand how this works. I see you're on Zoom, but I don't know how to get on the Zoom. How do I get my question? Let me dispel the myths for you. We're not trying to keep any secrets here. You write in on Facebook and YouTube. Our producer, Traven, collects those, and within seconds, he posts them here for me so that I can see. In fact, he's posted a couple of things. I'm saying hello to Jacinda. Good morning to you. And Jacinda says, it's such a good feeling knowing that you are out there and sharing the same view as me. Can I tell you right back at you that there sometimes in that larger autism community that I was talking about, we have a tendency, I think, I know I felt this way, and many have said to me over the years, you feel like you're on a planet by yourself. And the truth is, we are not on a planet by ourselves. There's a whole bunch of us that are out there that are very like-minded. We're not going to agree on everything, but we're very like-minded in a lot of different things. And it is helpful to know that that we have numbers, that there are so many of us. I always like to think of how many people's arms we are in that we don't even know. And when I'm in a meeting and I'm talking to professionals and and I hear the passion that they have for our kiddos, I get emotional. I cry. I'm known as the crier. And I'll say to them, you don't understand. There's a mom somewhere in Kansas who doesn't know that you're sitting here talking about this and planning on how you're going to help her kid 2 years from now or 6 months from now or 10 years from now. But if she knew, it would mean everything to her, right? Because if we all knew how many arms we were in every day, oh, it would make it easier. It would lighten the load, right? Let me tell you, you are in some arms right now, right? And I always like to extend the hand. We like to hold hands here virtually because I believe, si se puede, we got this, we can do this together. Okay, so we do like to start the show on Mondays with something that we're very fond of, and you guys tell us you're fond of it too, and it is called the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to figure out what in the hey nani nani are those experts talking about? Why do they even make these things up? And you know I wanted to use a different word there, right? But if we can make friends with these terms and start to understand what they mean, they really can save us time and money. And that's the whole reason why we do this. First, we give you the term, then we give you the actual definition whenever possible. I poke fun at that because I just roll that way. And then we give you a working definition. And sometimes that makes the BCBAs break out into hives. And I love BCBAs, but I love making them break out in hives with their definitions, right? Is it just me? So anyway, today's jargon term, fine motor skills. Let's take a look at what our actual definition is and see just how convoluted they could make this. Fine motor skills, skills that require control and coordination of muscles, bones, and nerves to produce small, precise movements. Okay, so as actual definitions go, not bad. There's not a single word there that I need to pull out a dictionary to try to figure out what it means. But I still don't know what this has to do with me, what this has to do with my child who's on the autism spectrum, and I don't know what to do. Like I have no idea what to do or even why I should care about this, okay? So let's take it to our working definition and see if we can't solve some of those questions. So fine motor skills are small movements utilizing the small muscles of the fingers, toes, wrists, lips, and tongue. All right, we're getting warmer here. So if I can't do fine motor skills, I am going to have troubles communicating. Why? Because I'm going to have trouble producing sound that's going to be intelligible. We've all met the kiddo who has worked so hard to be able to speak, but nobody can understand them. And why is that? Because they, there's the movements around their lips and such not happening, right? A lot of times we'll refer to that as oral motor, but it's under the heading of fine motor skills. What about being able to write? We want for everybody to have functional communication. And I know that for a lot of us, we really long for speech. And there's nothing wrong with that. Don't ever apologize for wanting to be able to speak or wanting your child to be able to speak. There's nothing wrong with that. Not everybody gets to. But everybody gets to communicate, and there are many different ways to communicate. Some people sign. Well, that is a fine motor skill. I remember when my child wasn't talking and people were telling me, oh, teach him to sign. And I wanted to go, he can't hold a crayon, folks. So he's not going to be able to spell his name with his fingers. Come on now, come on, right? Being able to hold a crayon is a fine motor skill. Being able to hold the crayon and draw a straight line is a fine motor skill. Being able to take a crayon and to be able to color with it, fine motor skill, right? So all of our writing skills, fine motor. How about being able to pick up a spoon and feed yourself? Fine motor skill. How about being able to pick up a raisin and feed yourself? Fine motor skill, right? And these things progress. It is interesting to me that many times our kids are not behind in fine motor skills, but many times they are, right? I would say, I don't know what this I was gonna spitball some statistics, but I don't know what they are. So this is not every one of our kiddos' issue. It isn't. But for the kiddos that it is an issue, it hampers communication. And it has the potential to hamper communication long-term. Now, my son had a really hard time writing. We found out later on that had more to do, because he could do all kinds of other things, fine motor, but we found out later on it had to do with coordination because he had an eye issue. So we have to be very careful that we're building the muscles to do the fine motor skills, but that I got an itch. I don't know what that's about. It's like a dog, because those of you who watch the show know that our good friend Joanne passed away, and we adopted her little dog, and so he's in here with me. He's the show mascot now during the show, but he sheds, and it's just like I think I gotta. We call him Cheese. I think I got a cheese here somewhere. So I beg your pardon. But anyway, fine motor skills. How about being able to grasp a zipper to be able to pull it up after you go to the bathroom? Fine motor. These are all the fine motor skills. So you can't poo-poo these, even if you feel like your kid is doing really well in this area, not to be poo-pooed, because these are skills that start very young and then they morph up. And you'll see that later on, if our kids get into video games, suddenly fine motor skills are very important to them, right? Because being able to work the controller is also a fine motor skill. Just word of caution, don't go, well, my kid can totally do his Nintendo, so we don't need to work on the other stuff, because my kid can totally do the Nintendo, but the handwriting, let's just say this, he should be a doctor, okay? Can type like the wind now, great, workarounds, but occasionally he still has to write or sign his name. So we continue to work on that. Traven, I want you to look at how toes is spelled on this. This is wrong. That is just wrong. We have a terrible typo on our thing that is cracking me up. Okay. Laughing with myself here. All right, moving on. We always have a question of the day. Our question today is what kind we got problems today. What fine motor, I think is what it's supposed to say. What fine motor activities do you enjoy? So what kind of things are you into? Like my mother was a knitter and a crocheter like the wind. She couldn't be anywhere that she wasn't knitting and crocheting. She would knit, crochet, read a book, and watch television all at the same time. No, what would make you say that maybe ADHD runs in my family? I have no idea what you're talking about. But she couldn't do one thing at a time. And people who are in meetings with me know that I have a very hard time doing one thing at a time, very hard. But so she knitted and she crocheted, both fine motor skills. Do you like to write? And are you a person who doesn't, typing is another fine motor skill too, but do you prefer, pen and paper? Some people are really into calligraphy right now. Some people draw or paint. These are all fine motor skills. Some people like to do makeup and applying makeup, all fine motor, folks. Some people play the piano. Some people play a guitar. Think about what you do fine motor. Even gardening is fine motor. So what kind of fine motor skills do you like to do? What's your favorite? Please excuse our typos. Traven is very apologetic. It's Monday. It's just one of those things. And we're doing the level best we can, right? All of us. So anyway, what's your fine motor thing? What is it? And why do you like it? What is it that you like about it? For years, I did needlepoint and my eyes are going, so it's much harder for me to do needlepoint now. But I did really fine cross stitch, some beautiful, beautiful stuff that I did. But it's harder now because you have to have the eyes to be able to do it. And I remember my mother, she used to do things like that too. And then she got to a point, she was like, I can't do it. Crochet, she could still do because she could do it without looking at it while she was reading her book. But now I get it. I'm like, oh no, I had projects I meant to do that I don't know if I'll get to because it's just hard on my eyes. I got to have like a flashlight and a magnifying glass, and it still wears my eyes out. So what do you do? What do you enjoy? Write in and tell us. Okay, moving on. We always have a topic of the week, and I know you guys live for the topic. I know you're just like salivating. You want what it is. Okay, so this is a topic that I absolutely love. One size doesn't fit all. Now, I'm a woman of size. So anytime I go into a store and they like, this wrap that I have on right now, if I were to look at the label, I would be willing to bet you that it says either one size fits all or one size fits most. I hate that one even more, right? But there is no one size fits all, and there's not even a one size fits most. And I've learned this in life, but I think I learned it best from autism. You know, I love Dr. Stephen Shore. We got to have him back on the show, in fact. Dr. Stephen Shore, wonderful, wonderful individual. He is the person credited with saying, when you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. Because, you know, they're members of mankind, womankind, you know, humankind. You can't lump them all together in one category. No, nor can you lump together every teacher, every therapist, every BCBA, every parent, right? And I think it behooves all of us to learn the lessons well that we learn from the autism community. And I think this is lesson number one. One size doesn't fit all. And I know that, you know, we'll talk a lot on the show and I'll throw ideas out to you, but, you know, we hope that you take what works for you, that fits for you, and that you leave the rest, right? Because everything isn't going to be right for everyone. And if you're not seeing something that fits you here, please write in and tell us, hey, I need more information about X, Y, and Z. Or I feel like this. Does anybody else feel like this? Am I alone and up a tree here? Or is it just me? Because I guarantee you, it's not just you. But you are entitled to your full experience that is your experience. So we're going to talk a little bit about that this week. I want to take a look at what you guys are. Hey, Nasser. And I'm saying hi to Christina. Let me go back up here. And we're going to have Bonnie Yates in just a few minutes, but I want to take a couple of minutes here to just take a look at some of the things that you guys have written in. Bonnie is waiting. Oh, you know what, Sean? Sean said, thank you for saying a child with autism instead of an autistic child. Thank you so very much. How we language autism is just like so important. And I'm also learning to not say that I'm an autism mom. I'm trying really hard to eradicate that from my language. I'm finishing a book and I like had to go back through and change every time that I wrote that. And now I say, I am the mom of an individual who is, it's really long. And I want to shorten it and say, oh, I'm an autism mom, but I'm not. If an autism mom is somebody who is on the autism spectrum and also a mom. And I know a lot of those people. It's just something that was easier for me to identify myself. So I'm trying really hard to be more specific with my words. And over the years, the words that we used to describe my son's diagnosis and our relationship to it has changed profoundly. And there were times when things that we said started to offend us. We were like, hey, that doesn't work for us. And then there were times that other friends came to me and said, oh, I'm offended by the way you're saying that. I don't like that. And I would always be like, well, I think it's more important how my son feels about it. And that's kind of where I've landed, is that it's got to sit right with me and it's got to sit right with my son and hopefully offends as few people as possible. I can't make everybody happy. But, you know, that is my son wouldn't have me like refer to it any other way. So thank you for noticing that. And thank you, Traven, for putting up my number. Oh, I'm saying hi to Christina, and I love, man, you're killing it. You're doing such a good job, and love what you're doing. And saying hi to Sarah. Sarah would love to hear my ideas on IEP goals with remote learning, only option for 5-year-old kindergarten, and happy to share those, but you're gonna want to hear from Bonnie as well, and we're gonna bring her in. Okay, and yeah, you're concerned about social development and poor fine motor skills, speech, OT. Well, they need to be giving you that stuff. And I'll tell you what, if you're looking for fine motor stuff to do, Pinterest is your best friend. And I mean all of Pinterest. Go in there, you know, get a membership and it's free, and look up fine motor. But I will tell you that Autism Live has a pin page. I don't even know what you call it, but we have lots of categories, pin boards, and there's a whole one just on fine motor, and it's fun. It's fun stuff. If you're working on fine motor and it's not fun, go to Pinterest because they make it super fun. Woo, good times. Thrill, thrill, thrill. And thank you for mentioning, you guys are talking about what is an RBT and what is the Institute for Behavioral Training. An RBT is a registered behavior technician. I want to tell you there's also something called a BCAT, which is a board certified autism technician. And you can get certified for both of them at the same time by going to the Institute for Behavioral Training and starting your studies there. There is more to it to get your certificate, but you can do a 40-hour program to begin that. And that's at ibehavioraltraining.com. And it's really cool. I recommend it for everyone. If you want to know, what's going on, that's the place to go and get that. And we've got more and more parents that are doing that. And it's just going to make it, you will understand so much more what we say here, but you'll understand so much more importantly, you'll understand so much more of what your therapists are doing, and you'll understand more of what you need to be doing to help your kiddo. And by the way, we've had lots of adults on the spectrum do that kind of thing and ultimately become therapists, and they have a greater understanding of what ABA is and understanding of themselves. It's really good. And it's very relatively inexpensive. And if you need a scholarship, there are organizations that give scholarships for the training. So I love that. Hi, Christine. I love that somebody is doing gardening with their kiddos, and that's a fine motor skill. Clay ceramics. Oh, love it. Love it. Thrilling. I want to learn how to throw on a pottery wheel. It's like on my bucket list. Okay, I'm wasting time. Bonnie's here. Let's bring her in. Ms. Bonnie Yates is a special education attorney working with the Tollner Law Offices. She is amazeballs, and we love her, and she's here pretty much on a weekly basis with us on Mondays. I can hear her. I do not yet see her.
Hold on.
Okay, well, I'm just going to keep talking while you're working on that. I'm saying nice things about you behind your back. And we want to encourage you guys, if you are in the state of California, Tollner Law Offices, great place to get a consultation, working with Bonnie or one of her, there she is, looking lovely.
Morning.
Good morning. And now I have a tickle in my throat, but I was saying nice things about you.
I know you were. I heard them because even though I didn't have my video on, I had my audio on.
There we go.
I really wanted to give you guys a background tour. My daughter just bought a house, and she's got like people putting carpet in, and there's boxes everywhere. Great place to work.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway.
But you're getting it done anyway, which is what you do.
Well, she's getting it.
Well, you're here.
No. You want to know something? I cannot find what I prepared over the weekend that I really was like all hot and bothered and wanted to share with everybody. But I know as soon as like the show's over, I'll remember what it was, but I have other stuff and we have questions.
Is it stuff that you sent me? Because you sent me a lot of stuff.
Well, I didn't send you everything,
Okay.
but I did want to mention what's going on with reading. I think that's important.
Let's go. Yeah.
Okay. So Shannon has, and she'll send to everyone, information that's really important in California, but I feel like sometimes so California goes, so goes the whole 50 states. So this is a move that is attempting to roll back more stringent requirements as far as what kind of methods need to be used to teach reading to students. And within there's a very profound article, which I can resend, but I think you have it, called Reading is Rocket Science. And this article is from 1999, but it talks about how people learn how to read, what kind of problems can occur, how we really know well now that multisensory methods, research-based, work better than anything else. And the article talks about this isn't really a economic thing or a color thing. Their position is all children can learn how to read, even if they're from a underperforming school or whatever the issue is, but you have to have the right approach. And it also talks about how teachers don't get the kind of instruction in school or in teacher training that they need to teach reading, because reading is complex. Why am I talking about all this now? Because at 1 o'clock today, PST, they're going to vote on this issue. And what I gave Shannon was something that allows you to weigh in on this issue if you want California to keep their current standards, which are actually really good and have only been in play for like a few years. And we really haven't had time to see the benefit of all of it. But I'm telling you, the reason they want to take this away is because they're going to go back to a system where it's like eclectic and teachers get to choose, and they're not going to have a lot of initial training. They're not going to have ongoing training, and it's not going to produce the results. And I feel like this is a totally relevant issue for the autism community because like 30% of our kiddos have reading comprehension and other issues that need to be addressed by reading instruction. So that's reading is rocket science. I'm going to be talking to you in the next few weeks a lot about fall and what to do for fall, and we can certainly revisit that today. I had an issue come up last week, though, that I wanted to share with the readers, with the listeners, because I think it might be relevant to stuff you encounter. So we typically see this in an initial evaluation for a child with autism, which is intended to qualify him for eligibility for special education. And oftentimes, if it's a little kid, they'll do a multidisciplinary team report, but sometimes they'll do separate academic and cognitive by the psychologist, and then they'll do speech by the speech therapist. What you don't tend to see is occupational therapy, vision therapy, assistive technology, central auditory processing. But the district is required to assess in all areas of suspected disability. And I bet if Shannon thinks back on this, she's going to realize there's a pattern, which is they always skip the OT if they can get away with it. So we have a client, his son is older, he's like 12 or 13. He's transitioning to LA Unified. So he's had a CREDI 504 plan in an online charter school for several years. So they're reassessing him for eligibility, and they didn't do OT. So dad wrote to the district and asked for an IEE in the area of OT because they waited like 6 months and they haven't assessed him. And LAUSD wrote back and said, hey, listen, we didn't assess in the area of OT, but we'll do it now. So Shannon has, and I think you have, if not, I'll resend it to you. Shannon has 2 letters from OSEP, which is the Office of Special Education Programs, commenting on this issue. One is a letter to Carol, and one is a letter to Baus. And there are things that have been, around for a while. This isn't anything super new, but they're really eloquent because they say, if the district waits an unreasonable time to assess, you can ask for an IEE. And the remedy for a delay in assessing in an area of suspected disabilities is not to offer to assess again. And in fact, I think it's letter to Baus that says the remedy, the best way you can protect against getting IEE requests is listen carefully when you talk to parents and you develop that initial assessment plan. So,
but remind them what IEE stands for.
Oh, I'm sorry, independent educational evaluation, a private evaluation paid for at district expense.
Yes, that's the important part, is that your kid will be evaluated by someone outside the school and the school will pay for it, folks.
And you can likely pick that person as long as they meet the criteria. So,
and that is a thing you devoutly to be wished. That's a good thing. When you have somebody who isn't at the school evaluating your kiddo on the, I think and especially if you're picking the person, you're going to get a better evaluation that isn't tied to what it's going to cost them. Is
correct.
Basically the thing.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I tell parents this is so important and it's potentially free. It's going to make me so much more appropriately targeted in designing a strategy for your case. I have to know what's wrong to design a strategy. I can't necessarily tell what's wrong based on the school district assessments. So these 2 policy letters basically say you got to assess in all areas of suspected disability within a reasonable time. If you don't and the parent asks for IEEs, you've only got 2 choices. You either have to file for due process and prove that your evaluation is appropriate, or you have to fund the IEE. And it goes on to say there's no third option. So those are interesting for you to read. They're not long, but I think they're very thoughtful in terms of how districts are supposed to be conceptualizing the initial assessment task. And, so this letter that we wrote for the client now has occasioned a letter back to LAUSD, but also we have asked CDE, California Department of Education, to get involved because we think that when they tell the district you're going to have to fund the IEE, they're probably going to do it. So that is something that you will encounter from time to time. There's lots of IEE tricks. The districts don't want to file for due process because they don't want to create a whole new case project for themselves that they have to take on. Sometimes they will say things like, you know, sure, you can have an outside evaluation at district expense, and then they'll give you the name of a psychologist in let's say the same special education local planning area that works for a school district and say, this person can do it. That's illegal. And it's also illegal for them to say you have to go with, you know, a person on the list. And, you know, they're also not supposed to say, if you ask for an IEE, they're not supposed to threaten you and tell you, you know, like, you know, no, don't ask for that. They're supposed to either file for due process and defend their evaluation as appropriate, or they're supposed to pay for your IEE. So watch out for that.
Okay, good to know. Now I had sent you a couple of questions, but I'm thinking you probably didn't get them. Did you?
No, I did get them. I did get them.
Can I read you the first one here and let's see if we can?
That's what I was hoping you were going to do.
Wonderful, because I know that this mom is watching right now. They said, I guess my question is for Bonnie Yates. Our school hasn't figured out what they are doing in the fall, but my therapists are asking to start schedule for the fall now. I don't want to lose valuable time, and yet I don't know what to do about school. Can I get in trouble with school if I don't attend some online classes because we're at therapy? Also, if I do cyber school, can I leave if everything opens? Currently, he is in front of a computer from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Monday through Thursday with only 30 to 60-minute break. That includes ABA, speech, OT, math, language, and music. He also has 2 nights in group session from 4 to 5:30, more ABA. Friday is only 1 hour of ABA. How much time is he really supposed to be in front of a screen? And can I ask the school to limit some of the other subjects? There's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack.
And we didn't give the disclaimer. We just very briefly, I want to give the disclaimer. Would you mind doing that?
No, I wouldn't mind giving the disclaimer, and I also wouldn't mind for the person that sent in this very detailed question to talk to her more specifically. So, you know, if you want to do that, we could set that up. The disclaimer is that we try to answer questions of general interest on the air, and it's not a substitute for specific legal advice. And you really do want and need some specific legal advice. You have a lot of questions. So let's see if I can remember. Okay, so the first question I have is, it sounds as if your ABA therapy is virtual. Is that your impression, Shannon? Or is the ABA, okay, so the ABA therapy is virtual, but yet I'm understanding that you're concerned about, I thought the concern is that she's going to have to give up the ABA therapy to be online and do school. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are in this boat right now, Bonnie, where ABA is back and ABA providers are rightly trying to get kids back in and scheduled, and people still don't know what the fall schedule is for school. So they're nervous about, they're like, oh, am I going to get in trouble? You know, should I take ABA now and then deal with it later? Like, everybody is like standing on one foot.
I see. Okay. Well, just my opinion, but I don't know that what you're going to get from school in the fall is going to be worth sacrificing your ABA for. It would obviously depend on, you know, past performance by the district would be the best indicator of what you might get in the future. They say they're going to try to do better. They never did good enough as far as I was concerned when we weren't virtual. So I would set myself up to do the ABA, and you can proceed one of 2 ways with modifying your schedule. First of all, you said, can I opt out of cyber school if I want to when it's time to go back to school? Of course you can. School's compulsory if it's open. Nobody can force you to do cyber school. In the meantime, you can either have an IEP meeting with the district, and we heard that, I think it was San Francisco Unified, Shannon, said they're going to do an IEP for every single one of their 2,700 kids in special education in the first month of September. So you can ask for an IEP, you can tell them you need a modified schedule, you can tell them it's too much screen time. You can talk about his response to distance learning so far and why it hasn't been that educational, and you've got a better way that you want to do things. And then you can set up, if you're in California anyway, you can set up a private homeschool in your home and do do whatever home program you want to under your auspices as a private school. Now, the problem is, if you reject the district learning, distance learning, I haven't seen them coming after people for truancy or anything like that. I haven't seen them trying to force people into it. But if you're going to challenge their program in the future and ask for compensatory education, you want to have tried it so you can describe why it was so not working for your kid. That's the only thing I would say is we're getting into some due processes now where the district is like, well, you didn't even, take advantage of like 50% of what we offered. So, how do you know that it's not good? But anyway, if you're in California, I'd be happy to talk this through, because I think that there's some facts in there that I don't have, like what the age of your child is and what you got during distance learning and how bad was it. But the general approach is, I think lots of people are going to be rejecting distance learning because it doesn't work for their kids.
Yeah, and I'm not 100% positive, but I believe that this parent is closer to where you are now than California. Unfortunately.
Okay. So my experience is based on what goes on in California, but generally speaking, I think it sounds like you do need to talk to a special education attorney. I would direct you to the COPA website. If you do this right, I don't think you have to worry about having truancy problems. You might, run into a problem in terms of them saying you didn't, do our program. I mean, and I don't know what the private school rules are in your state. I just can tell you that in California, you could totally leave public school and set up a private school in your home. And if your position is the district is not providing FAPE, that's why I'm having to do this. You give them 10 business days written notice. That's federal. That's true in every state. And you tell them that to the extent that you have to spend money on private services, you're doing so because they didn't offer FAPE. And then you're set if you decide to bring a case later to get reimbursed for any private services that you might purchase.
Yeah, and then to the question about how long should our kiddos be online? And this is a tough thing, right? Because if it weren't for COVID, all of our experts say much less than what our kids are if they're getting all of this stuff online.
Mm-hmm.
This is like time out of time. And I almost feel like some of the rule books are being thrown away because, you have to do what you have to do. And I don't know, Bonnie.
I don't know what your options writer into the program would be in terms of creating some real-time activities in your neighborhood with maybe, another family or something. I mean, I'm really a hypocrite because I'm online a lot, but I'm really anti-screen time for kids. And I think it's really bad when 2-year-olds have their own cell phones. And I don't find the medium compelling, but we're also in a public health emergency. And so in order to get out of that, I think, unfortunately, certain things are getting sacrificed, and there are some that aren't that important. Like, are people going to die if they don't eat out in a restaurant again? Education is really important, but it's not more important than dying. So you just got to do your best. I don't know that it's been studied how much screen time is good or bad for kiddos, but you can Google it and I'm sure you'll get some interesting responses.
And let's say this, I don't think all screen time is created equally. And as a parent of someone who was diagnosed with autism, I know that if I give him 6 hours and let him play a video game, and then I try to do something with him in the 7th hour, his brain is in that game. And it's very hard to extract him from that game and get him back into reality. If he spends an hour playing that video game and I ask him to switch and go do something else, at this point in the game, his brain is agile enough that he can do that without missing a beat. And that somewhere in between that 1 and 6 hours is when he reaches the critical mass. Everybody is different. And
I would be really, really like untrue to myself if I didn't just say something very, very opinionated here.
Go for it.
garbage in, garbage out.
Yep.
It is not neutral for teenage kids to spend 6-7 hours a day or 20 hours a week on screens playing games and doing stuff that doesn't teach them skills.
But if they're spending that time doing something that is activating their brain and getting them thinking, I don't think it's as bad screen time.
It isn't as bad. It isn't as bad. And I don't know how good or bad it is, but I do have to tell you, I don't see any reason why people can't use this time, to the extent that they have any free time, to do things that are more tactile and hands-on. You know, and you know, read and do nature study in your backyard and make things, learn how to cook things, learn how to sew, learn skills that are really quite useful, even though they're not computer based.
Yeah.
So
we have found that we have to separate the day into chunks and do that kind of thing, and it's been good. You know, I keep thinking of what would I have done when he was 3, but I mentioned Pinterest before. If you're like, I'm not a former teacher, I don't know what to do, Pinterest has activities for you to do that are educational, tactile, and will help your kid to connect with you in the world. So check out Pinterest, and do check out, we have Pinterest boards on Autism Live, stuff that I personally have curated for parents that I think is good stuff to do, but I by no means covered all of Pinterest. So tour around in it, but if you want the fast track, check out our page. Okay, so Bonnie, I sent you a second question and it was so long, I don't even know that if you want to get into it and or not. Did you have a second to look at the second question I sent you?
I did.
Okay.
Is that person outside of California?
I don't know for that one.
Okay. As I remember this question, this parent has been empowered by learning about her rights as a parent with a child with special needs.
And she's also a teacher. Yeah.
And she has really benefited from learning that she can stand up for herself. And she has also really benefited from learning that even within the, like, you know, rough road of negotiating special education, there are committed people within educational institutions that really aren't political and care about getting what's right. But the way I read her question as it went on, and maybe we should read it on the air and pick it up next week, but what I'm hearing is she needs more information about her child's profile. And I'm not hearing that she has a good comprehensive assessment. So like, it would be nice to walk through her facts and see if she's in a position to get an outside evaluation. To do that, we need to know what was the last date that the child was evaluated by the district and what areas they evaluated in. Like, okay. I'm hearing that she's doing a lot of advocacy for herself, and I'm happy to suggest like more sources of information so she can keep continuing to learn. But I'm also feeling like, even like, you can do great advocacy, but if you don't really know what your kid needs and you don't have a way to prove to the district that you have evidence of same that you could use against them in a due process hearing, you're going to kind of flutter around at the IEP level, and you'll know things like, oh, I get to tape record or audio recorder. Oh, this is how you consent to an IEP. Or, oh, in California, I don't have to consent to the things that I don't like. I can consent to, only some of them. But what is your overriding objective and your strategic plan for your child's education, especially now during COVID?
Okay, so, let me read some sections of the letter so that people know kind of what we're talking about. I'm not going to read the whole thing because there's a lot here, but she says, I'm trying to build a positive relationship with the school district, but that, her child has encountered people that are not, as she refers to them as some of the people, which are amazing earth angels, and that she, he runs into special ed teachers and principals that are not that. And that she's learned a lot from watching Autism Live and watching Bonnie, and that she drafts out a letter before bringing it to the IEP and brings a tape recorder, and that has really empowered her, and she wants to share that with parents. She wants to give us a snapshot of what's going on, because like all of us, the story gets long, right? She says, I want the new school to honor his 30 minutes in general education classroom and not general education PE. The old school even wrote a description of his time in general ed class, but the new school refused to honor the previous IEP. The principal and the special education teacher came up with the excuse that, in their words, we did not check some type of core curriculum box in the IEP.
Yeah,
so they
that's hogwash.
So they honored it by placing him in Gen Ed PE instead of some. So they had to honor putting him in Gen Ed, and they chose PE, which is just
Gen Ed cop out.
Right. Then I asked the principal to check the box now, and she refused and stated that his FAPE remains the same. The special education teacher and principal violated the following items. 1, they did not give us safe ground. 2, they already made up their minds that they wanted to do with my son. They disregarded other members' inputs in the meeting. 3, even the Harbor regional representative was upset and told me for the next IEP meeting, we needed to bring an advocate. Now with the pandemic situation, I want to request for him to have access to Gen Ed Google Classroom and have extended time to turn in his work because I'm working mom and I teach too. So
I forgot about the Gen Ed angle. You've got basically a case for mainstreaming, and I think, you know, you might need an expert to make the case, or it might be a lot of evidence in the documents that you already have about why mainstreaming is appropriate for him. We've covered on the show before the fact that mainstreaming with supports is the default. And it sounds like there are reasons why they aren't putting him in general ed are really weak and flaky. So if she is in California, in fact, she's in Southern California because she's with the Harbor Regional Center. So we can talk about either now or next week, depending on how much time is left this afternoon. We can talk about the kind of things that we do when students aren't being mainstreamed and they're high functioning, and often, you know, you have a high functioning kid with autism and they just don't want to be in the position of having to pay for a good para or behavior therapist in the classroom. So they're just trying to keep them in special ed. And anytime you see that, and you see that they're like, oh, well, we'll you know, mainstream during lunch, or we'll meet mainstream at the assembly, you can see that's pretty classic textbook. Like it smells bad, and, you know, further investigation is needed. So again, it would be nice to know, you know, how long ago he was assessed, and in what areas, and exactly what the offer has been in the IEP. And it sounds like they don't have a good justification at all, but do you have recordings of those meetings so you can show that they illegally refused to consider mainstreaming in a meaningful way? If so, you know, we do these mainstreaming cases all the time. I mean, we don't see as many of them as we once would have, because mainstreaming is the presumptive placement. So,
yeah,
you know, you'd have to tell me, you'd have to apply the Rachel Holland test. And if your child can learn in the classroom and he's, you know, still young and getting a lot of social benefit and he's not disruptive, they got a mainstream.
Yeah, and I have to say, you know, I'm a huge fan of mainstreaming, and I used to be I used to naively say everyone, and I'm a former teacher, and I say everyone should be mainstreamed. I have come to understand that mainstreaming isn't right for everyone. That kiddos who can't self-regulate, it can be too much for them. Kiddos who are harmful to themselves and other people, it creates an environment that is not good, right? So I no longer believe that everyone should be mainstream, but I still think that overwhelming majority of our kids can and should be mainstreamed. And what I have come across,
have to be all or nothing, Shannon. You could be mainstreamed 50% of the time. And the reason we keep kids that are not well suited in some ways in mainstream classes is because special ed classes are so bad.
Well, yes. And I have to say that in my world, you know, I had Bonnie helping me early on. And so when we started school, we were mainstreamed, and that was great. But later on, when it was time for my son to go to junior high, my child who had never spent a minute in a special day classroom, we went for the transition meeting to go to junior high, and they informed me that they wanted him to go to a different school than his home school, to be in an closed classroom instead of changing classes, and to be in a special ed classroom with 14 boys, no girls, and the same teacher for every subject. My really like smart kid who was looking forward to taking all of these electives. And we fought tooth and nail right up until the week before school started. They were not going to do it. And you know what I discovered is because they were afraid that they didn't know how. That was the problem that I had to overcome. Was they had tried inclusion many years before, and they had a negative experience, and they decided it couldn't be done.
Yeah, well, the law doesn't agree that you just get to fold up your tent if it's hard, or if you have to bring in outside consultants to teach you how to do it.
And we continued to fight, and we continued to fight with Bonnie's help. And my kid went to the school that he was supposed to go to. He changed classes. He did so wonderfully. And it was just a 2-year junior high school. And at the end, they said, thank you. We now know that this is possible. So not only did it work out for my kid, but it made room for other kids. And I was ready to fold. But Bonnie said not to. And Dr. Doreen Grampichet told me she would kick me with one of her pointed shoes if I caved in. And she said, because they were telling me all kinds of crap, like he can't handle this. We've never had a kid be able to handle this. The other kids will eat him alive, you know, and Dr. Grampichet said to me, now stop that. We prepared him for this. He's ready. And he was. So I'm just here to tell you, push. And you know, because you are in California, reach out to Bonnie, get a consultation with her so that they don't roll over you on this, because that's crappy.
Yeah, I mean, the law's on your side. The law says in the absence of other information to the contrary, the district has to offer general ed.
Yeah.
So,
now
your district needs to get with the program.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we've only got 2 minutes left, and we did have somebody write in earlier that they wanted to know my opinion about IEPs and this COVID and distance learning for a 5-year-old. We're going to be covering a lot more topics having to do with this over the next few weeks. It's really, about the education component about it, but you've heard Bonnie speak a little bit about what your rights are. And I think that that's important to do. We've got parents though, Bonnie, that they're really concerned about the social aspect of school when it's distance learning. Any words for them about that before we have to go? You got about a minute and a half.
Well, first of all, our law firm is now advising every one of our clients that they should give a 10 business day notice to the district and leave open for themselves the option that they may have to pay for private services, and they can sue the district for reimbursement on a comp-ed theory. As far as the social aspects of this, I feel like what's happening is that slowly, kind of not the educational sector so much, but like the private sector, people are figuring out ways for their kids to have some degree of social engagement. And it's, mostly, I think for the next 6 months going to look like, is it possible for you to approach a couple other families and set up some, safe, socially distant, backyard social opportunities, if that's a possibility for you? And if not, maybe somebody else does have a backyard, or maybe you can meet in a park or something. But I honestly think for the next 6 months, in a lot of ways, we're going to be on our own. And I don't think the district is going to be holding social skills classes virtually. And I don't think that that's really what you're looking for. So I haven't heard of anybody doing anything specific about social skills. But, my thought also is there are people that do social skills training. And so maybe, if you can reach out to some of those people, they may be doing stuff privately. And the reason you give the 10 business days notice is so that you can sue the district for reimbursement if you're having to augment because they're not offering stuff that's really essential and your child is losing ground.
2 things before we go, and I'm supposed to be in a meeting right now. 3 things, because I want to thank Bonnie. Bonnie, if you give the 10-day notice and you
10
still decide,
business days.
So you give the 10.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, but no Saturday, Sunday, or holiday.
So you give the 10 business days notice, but you still, on the night before, decide to go to school. They still have to take you, right?
Yeah, the 10 business days notice doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't limit you in any way. It just means that if you do that and, you end up staying with it, like you can't do 3 months of speech therapy and then go, great, and now I'm going to tell the district I want them to pay for this. You have to give them the opportunity first to consider your request.
Okay, but if I give 10 business days and then we go back to school and we get 3 weeks in and we see it's not robust enough, do I have to give another 10 days business notice? Or is that first?
No,
Okay.
you just have to be in the first notice. You have to tell them you're going to purchase educational services because the district isn't offering FAPE. The more specific you can be specific. But if you don't know if it's going to be school and speech and social skills, put them all in.
Okay.
Put in your wish list, and then you can always back off from some of that later.
Okay. And I do want to tell everybody that I think starting at age 4, the PEERS, PEERS program at UCLA is doing distance PEERS program with ages 4 and up. And it's award-winning, fabulous, social. The parents do it on a different track than the kids, but at the same time. So you're learning what they're learning. It's the best. Reach out to them and get your child signed up to it. That's social skills, truly awesome. PEERS. What's that?
Great suggestion.
There we go. Okay, we are done for today, but Bonnie, thank you so much for all your help and support today. We want to remind everybody the Tollner Law offices, reach out to them and or to Bonnie, especially if you're in the California area, reach out and get a private consultation with Bonnie. And if you are not in the California area and are looking for an attorney, Bonnie, who do they go to?
COPAA.net. They have an attorney directory. Most of those people have been doing special education for quite a while and they know what they're doing.
And nobody gets a kickback for any of that. We're just recommending good services.
Yeah, no, I pay my COPA membership like everybody else. They're a great organization.
Well, and I also want to say that Tollner Law Offices doesn't pay us anything. We're just thrilled to have Bonnie here.
Thank you. And please disseminate the reading information and people, please reach out.
There we go. Okay, and send your questions.
Yeah. Well, but today they need the comments by 1 o'clock.
Oh, okay. For that. Okay.
Send that stuff out if you can.
All right. Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you so much for being here. You guys, tomorrow we're back with a very special episode of Talking with Temple, some of the best interviews that we've done with Temple Grandin over the last few years. You're going to love it. And then on Wednesday, we have Evelyn Kung with us. On Thursday, for those of you who are interested in either dance movement with your kiddos or learning more about what works with distance learning and inclusion, you're not going to want to miss Thursday. We have Robin Renee Martinez is going to be here with us from Fullerton Cares. They've been doing an online dance program all summer long that is open to all of you. It's free. Stop. I know, it's so good. And she's got some tips and tricks about what they've learned about distance learning to make it so that everyone wants to participate. And by the way, you can have your neurotypical siblings participating as well. That's Thursday. So y'all don't want to miss that. We got to go. I'm late for a meeting. I love you all. Thank you for being here. Until tomorrow, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.
The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're coming to you live from many locations this morning, and it is Wednesday, so you can see that we have Evelyn Kung with here for Ask Evelyn Kung. Good morning, Evelyn. So thrilled to have you here with us. I'm going to take care of some quick business, and then we're going to start talking with Evelyn. And a couple of quick things. First of all, the show is live. We are live. It is a Wednesday. I got to check the date, August 5th. So we are live right now. Some of you may be watching us later on, but for those of you, I know it's confusing, right? But we are live right now if you're watching us on Wednesday, August 5th. And there are lots of ways that you can interact with us. We always love to interact with you, whether we're live or you're watching us later on. So let's go through some of the different ways that you can get your questions, concerns, comments to the show here, and that we can interact with you. So first of all, we are live right now on YouTube, on Facebook, on Periscope, Twitter, and on our homepage, autism-live.com. We're live in all of those places. Later on, we will be recorded in all of those places, but we will also podcast as a free download to iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Deezer. We are getting ready to launch on a couple of more platforms. By the way, we can be seen on BronxNet TV. If you would like us on your cable access channel, all you need to do is write to us and give us the name of the person at your cable access company that would handle that sort of thing. We're happy to be on as many screens as we can possibly be. We do make, our litmus test of where we can be is that if it can come to you if it can come to you for free, live isn't as important, but we want it to be we don't want this to be an extra cost for you. How's that? We want this to be a free resource. And what we're about here is providing information and inspiration. That's really what we're all about. And we're going to have a lot of information and inspiration for you in just a few seconds. But want to remind you that you can also reach me if you have a long question or something that you don't want to put out in a format where other people can read it. You can write to me at s.penrod, PENROD, at autism-live.com. I love to hear from you. All right. I'm saying hello to a couple of people already. We're saying hello to Amanda and Bonnie. Good morning, ladies. So thrilled to have you here with us. And we also are thrilled to have Evelyn Kung with us. You know that it's pretty much 50-50 now, whether we're doing Ask Dr. Doreen or Ask Evelyn Kung. They're both fabulous. Evelyn is such a wonderful resource in the field of autism, and I know you guys all love her and what she has to share with us. We do have to give you the disclaimer that there is no expert in any field, let alone autism, who could give individual specific advice in this format. They don't have eyes on the situation. They don't have enough information. So you're going to write to us right now in any format that you like and tell us what's going on. You're going to be as specific as possible. And you're going to know that Evelyn, brilliant expert that she is going to give you information of a general nature. And then you need to take that information home to the experts that are in your area and have eyes on the situation and hopefully have more to share with them. Hey, I'm saying hi to Parker, Helen, and thrilled that the rest of you are here with us. Write into us if you want us to say hi. I always say I feel like the romper room lady. I see Bonnie, and I see and I see Parker, and I see Evelyn. Evelyn, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
I'm so thrilled that you are here. And since we've already had a question come in live, I've got a bunch of questions from before, but I'm going to go with live because that's what I'm going to do. When my son wakes up around 4 a.m., sometimes he says different words with no sense. And the more that he feels awake, the louder he gets. I've tried to tell him to be quiet many times and show him his dad and his sister sleeping so he can grasp the idea that they are sleeping. What can I do to teach him the meaning of quiet or silence?
Well, I guess the main question here is really what type of therapy is he getting and how, is he learning? Like if he is getting an ABA program, there is a voice volume practice that you can go through. First thing is you have to receptively play a sound, and it can be anything, and ask him to identify like what is quiet and then what is loud. And then you can play a game of matching where you say something and he has to match it in the same voice, and then have him label it so that he knows what quiet and loud is. And then from there, you can like have him say something, but tell him like, say it in a quiet voice, say it in a loud voice, and give him some control over being loud or quiet. And you never know with this kind of behavior, how it's been reinforced too, because if it's been going on for a long time, he might know that if he's loud, someone comes in, to see him. And when he's quiet, nobody comes in. And so it can also have that behavioral component also, where maybe this is the way he communicates to you, how to get you to come in the room. And so then that would be another skill that you could teach him, is that when he wakes up, you can redirect him. So maybe while he's asleep at night, you set out some toys for him to play so that when he wakes up, he has something to do. And that would be a whole practice of teaching him to wake up and how to get access. Or if you know that when he wakes up, he wants water or something to drink, you would have it all placed in there for him the night before, so that he can get access to those things on his own in a safe manner and, within his room or something. And then of course, there's also the act of teaching him how to come get you instead of waking everybody up, how to come and tap on you, like when you're asleep, and wait for you to respond and not just yell out, some kind of babbling. Yeah. So it's not just like one little skill of teaching, him to be quiet or not. It could be multiple on many levels on why he's doing this, how he's doing it, and does he have the replacement behaviors to, take care of it if he is doing it for a certain purpose.
And I think, you've touched on something that is part of what confuses a lot of us as caregivers. And we didn't even say what you do and what your job title is and where you work. So maybe we should take a second and talk about that. And I will share what my credentials are, which are this long. But what is your job title? What do you do? Where do you work?
Let me just say you have the mom credential, and that counts for a lot.
Okay,
That's on the job learning.
It certainly is. I've always said if there was a CLEP test for credits for a parent of an individual on the autism spectrum, I want to test out of the college. I want to get the degree with just the CLEP credits. Okay,
exactly.
But for you, what's your dealy wheely?
So I am a BCBA, but I've been doing this a lot longer. I predate. My experience predates the BCBA. So I've been doing this almost 30 years now, and came into it kind of just accidentally. But I don't know what my current title is. My current title, I think, is Senior Director of Clinical Systems at CARD, at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. But my job for the last 10 years has been the Clinical Director at CARD. And what that means is when supervisors, or if there's a problem behavior or just some skill that they're wanting to teach and they don't know how, I help the supervisors, or the parents will come to me and say, hey, there's this thing we're trying to work on, and we've tried all these ways, what can we do? So half my job is still pretty much consulting with families across the board, so across the country, and on different levels. And then I also am in charge of our skills curriculum, which is a curriculum that is, it's made for people with autism, but it really is with the idea that, hey, this is everything you need. If you wanted to teach a child and the child was able to learn everything in the skills curriculum, they would be able to function independently. And
there we go.
So,
So I thank Evelyn for taking the time to be with us. And as I'm a parent, if it wasn't apparent to you, I am a parent of an individual who was diagnosed with autism at 2.5. And I am always thrilled to be here, because what we went through, I got very lucky, and I'm aware of it. And I try to be in that grateful space of awareness where my goal here always is to give back. I have karmic debt to pay down, let's put it that way, that I really lucked out that my son, I literally tripped across a family who was a CARD family when I was having to decide what to do. And it opened up my life and my world to the possibilities of what our kids on the spectrum could do. And we started our really intensive quality ABA program with CARD. And, I'm very fond of saying here, because it's the truth, we got our son back. That is what happened. And that I'm very lucky that now my child is 17. And, you know, yesterday, normally he's about to be, he is an emerging senior. And normally we would have spent this summer looking at colleges. How amazing is that? So we were having to virtually tour colleges yesterday. And because that's the world that we live in. And we were laughing at some of the virtual tours, just laughing ourselves sideways and picking things out in the pictures. Like I couldn't believe some of it, because I think these colleges threw these things up with this much notice, you know. But in one place they showed the student lounge, and it was all boarded up with plywood, and we just laughed and laughed. And I, at least 3 times yesterday when I was talking to parents, I said, you know, if somebody had told me when he was 3 that my biggest concern as he's entering his senior year is a pandemic and that he's fine and social and whatever, I would have wept. It would have driven me to my knees, and I would have wept with joy. And so that's the space from which I'm coming. I want you guys to be lucky as I am, to find what you need and what your kiddos need. And we always say here that we're here for the whole autism community. If you're on the spectrum and you are writing in, of course, it starts with you, right? But we also, you know, want to support everybody who loves those individuals. So that's what I'm here for. Okay, so our parent that was talking about the sleep issue when he wakes up at 4 o'clock in the morning, she wanted us to know that her son is 7 and functionally verbal, and that they are starting ABA services in September. Woo! And that is going to rock your world. And you know, make sure that you're talking with your ABA company about all the behaviors like these kinds of things, so that they can be looking at them, right, Evelyn?
Yes, definitely. And realize there might be a little lag time depending on who the child is. Sometimes what you need to do at the beginning is just work on kind of basic compliance and kind of how the basic learning goes before you work on an abstract concept such as loud and quiet. Okay, sometimes you have to go through some concrete steps so he starts to figure out what the learning is, how to learn things. And it might require really at the object level where it's very concrete information first before you can actually teach a concept or an abstract concept like volume.
And she says when he comes to our bed, he still vocalizes words, but he whispers them. And that's improvement, right? And I know I started to say something else before. I've talked all the way around in a circle. Can you tell I'm discombobulated this morning? But I want to address this first, and then I'll go back to that. So it's so important as a parent to know, what is it we're working on? Are we working on him not getting out of bed, or are we working on him whispering when he gets out of bed? Right? Like, because those are 2 entirely different things, and you can be working on both of them to some extent, but what's the most important, right? So if he's already whispering when he comes to your bed, and that's really what you're working on, then that's what you would reinforce, right, Evelyn?
Yeah, and I actually, with that additional information, I can give you an idea.
Okay.
So he probably whispers because you whisper when you're talking to him in your bed. Mm-hmm. He's just copying you. So if you are getting up to tell him to be quiet in his room, when you walk in his room, you actually should be whispering to him in his room. And there's a good chance he's just going to imitate you because he's probably learned that behavior when he's coming to wake you up in your bed. And so there's a chance that if you go to him and only talk to a whisper in his room in the early morning, he might just start doing it because he's imitating you and for no other reason. So that's a really great talent to have.
There you go. There you go. Isn't that wonderful? Because being able to imitate is like the base skill that you need to have to be able to do everything else, yep, which is really super cool. So the thing that I started to say, which led me down the path of why we're here, is that as parents, a lot of times we'll be trying to do something and we don't understand why it's not working. And the thing that you said, Evelyn, that I said, that's the thing I want to discuss, is you said there's so many different skills here. And it could be so many different things. And that's what we need to recognize as parents, is that in every single moment that we are all here, there's a lot going on. And that since our kids can't tell us all the things that are going on, that's why we want to work with really good ABA professionals who can help us to identify that. So there we go. I want to move on to, I love that so I don't love what they're saying, but I love that this person is writing in. My question is about the police. Is it normal for autistic people to be afraid of the police? Since the incident in Arizona with the officer falsely accusing an autistic person of being on drugs, I am afraid of driving and law enforcement in general. And this individual goes on to say he wanted to share some advice for the mom and say, my advice as an autistic adult is to tell your child that whispering is quiet, for an example, that he may not understand that whispering is quiet. I love that. And he says that I gave an example of ABA working and that he feels that he also is an example of ABA working. So thank you for all of that. Let's go back and talk about the police though. Is it common for individuals on the spectrum to be afraid of law enforcement, Evelyn?
So I am going to assume that this person is a high functioning, whether it's a teen, adult, or whatever it may be.
Well, they're driving. So
yeah, they're driving, so they have skills. So one of the things just to realize is the things that you will see on TV are the things that are abnormal. Okay. So I know that there are many even, neurotypical people out there who don't watch the news because it just freaks them out. It's so scary to watch all the things that are happening. But one of the things to acknowledge is that what you're seeing is abnormal. So, or it's not, should not be the regular, duty of a policeman. Okay, so there is, I know, depending on the group that you come from and your experience with the police, there are different, different experiences that people have, and those different experiences influence how you think about the police. That's why everything that's going on right now, in our society about police is a big deal right now. So there are a few different things that you can realize is that, as long as you're following the rules and if somebody pulls you over, if you have someone in your life to teach you how to practice talking to a policeman for, like, let's say they pull you over for something that, you need to explain the basis for why you are doing things. You need to listen to them, make sure the policeman's able to explain why he pulled you over or why he stopped you or why he's interacting with you. But then you also have to give your reasoning, like you need to, it's really a good thing a lot of times that helps policemen is just to tell them, you know what, I'm really afraid, I'm on the autism spectrum. So I don't understand a lot of social cues that maybe you think you're telling me. So please keep that in mind when we're in this interaction. Like there's a lot of like, if you can give that kind of preface and do it very respectfully, a lot of people will just immediately start to help you. Okay. And you don't want to use it as a crutch. But the thing is, in that period of time, you have to tell them, maybe they don't know what autism is. So that's why I always tell people, and I tell this to parents all the time, is if you are telling your child that they have autism, it's better to tell them what they're not good at or what they're missing socially. Because if they come to somebody and say, I have autism, this is why I can't, that's why I don't do it, it becomes a crutch. And if the person hasn't had experience with autism, they don't know what that means. So it's better to say, like, I have really a hard time reading faces and reading social cues. So I might come off rude or inappropriate, but I don't know I'm doing that. And, so if you can tell the person, you're basically educating them a little bit about how you communicate before, right at the start of your interaction, it will help people work with you because it's not, you're not using it as an excuse, but you're basically telling them, hey, look, this is how I function and this is what I understand. And I know that I miss certain things and I'm not doing it on purpose, and if you tell people that, a lot of people will work with you no matter, who they are. It doesn't matter if they're police or a peer or, a friend out there or an acquaintance that you see in a grocery store. It's important to tell them that, like what your limitation is right at the beginning so that they understand like, hey, okay, I'm going to work with you on this, and of course there's going to be people who are not nice and who won't, consider it. But for the most part, I usually with the individuals we work with, if we teach them how to do this nice right at the beginning, and it's important it's at the beginning, most people will work with the person.
Yeah.
The fear shouldn't limit you from engaging in society.
And yeah, I have a couple of resources for you too. There's a film called Be Safe, the movie, and it is really meant for kids that are probably 10 through maybe teenage years. But I learned things from it. I learned things from it about how we interact with the police. It is made by Emily Island, and all the actors in it are actors on the spectrum. All of the police and first responders in it are actual police and first responders. And there's a curriculum that goes with it to teach both police and other people how to appropriately respond when the police are there. So if you need curriculum or a video to watch, I highly recommend it. But here's the other thing. One of the things that Emily and her son Tom do is they go to police departments, and usually the city will pay for it, and they do an interactive thing with individuals in the community and the local police. And I would highly recommend seeing if that's something that your local police would pay for and attending that. And if you feel that you can't do that, you know, my son grew up in the same town that Emily Island was living in. So I didn't have to do all of that with my police. All I had to do was call the police and say, hi, can I bring my son over to take a tour of the police department? And they were excited. And because I said, he's on the spectrum. I don't want him to be afraid of the police. I want him to understand who you guys are. And they were so excited. And I know we did that with the fire department. If you as an adult said, hey, I'm an adult on the spectrum, is there any way that I could come over and, chat with you guys? I just think that they would be so interested in that. I'd like to believe that. And I know that Emily and her son have done a lot of work in Arizona as a result of the incident that you're talking about. It's so scary, right? I just want to remind everybody that it's also scary for the police. They don't know what they're dealing with. And unless they know, they have a default that they go to. And it really is incumbent upon all of us that we educate them. I think you're in the catbird seat for that if you were to go over and have a conversation with them, they would be like, oh, this is an adult on the spectrum. I've met another adult on the spectrum and they are not alike. And even that awareness could change somebody's life. What a cool thing that could be. I'm getting chills thinking about it. So anyway, I hope that I don't want you to be afraid of the police. You may need them at some point. Okay, I want to move on to, this is coming from a card parent. My son has stereotypic movement disorder, and he doesn't engage as much during therapy hours, but he engages in stereotypic movement when the therapists are not in the home. I use DRA as well as DRI. However, I'm still not able to get him to stop at times. He also has non-compliance, sometimes severe, sometimes age appropriate. But yesterday, our BCBA told us she needs to fade 5 hours. So instead of 20, we will be getting 15 once she submits it to insurance. Why reduce hours? I just lost my place. Why reduce hours during a pandemic is a big question. An even bigger question is, why not increase hours when the main reason we started with CARD is the stereotypic movement? And then she goes on to say which office the BCBA is with, but they've only been with CARD since April, and she's concerned about why are we reducing the hours? I would be too.
That's valid. It's very valid. So there's so many different layers there. I would tell the BCBA, like, what is your medically necessary recommendation for me? Like, son, because she shouldn't be reducing just because insurance is telling her to reduce. Maybe a supervisor or somebody is telling her needs to reduce. So then what you need to focus on is, since your funding is health insurance will fund according to the medical necessity. There are some health insurance that don't see stereotypic behavior as medical necessity. And they see the medical necessity being more of the challenging behaviors like aggression or noncompliance. If his noncompliance is still really high, that might be enough. But the thing is, you have to think about the replacement skills that are missing. And if those replacement skills are medical necessity items, you really need to talk to that BCBA and say, like, which of these are medical necessity? Are there other skills that he's missing that, you know, fall into that deficit of medical necessity that makes him fit into the autism spectrum? Like, because her report needs to show all the medical necessity items, and just stereotypical behavior by itself does not work, I have to say, you know. But usually, I mean, there are studies out there that that tell you functional behavior and stereotypical behavior go hand in hand. When stereotypical behaviors are high, that means functional skills are low. And it'll go back and forth. When functional skills are high, you have lower stereotypical behavior. And that's probably why during sessions, the stereotypical behavior is lower. What they're concerned about is if it's higher outside, that means he's missing some kind of probably a social communication skill that will replace that behavior outside of therapy. Does he have all those skills that he needs outside of therapy? A therapy session is very structured, and it's one-to-one, and it's high. It's one-to-one ratio, right? There's one therapist and one kid, and that therapist is pretty much structuring the whole time as they're working. But outside of session, you should have a real conversation with the BCBA about what outside of session looks like, because there can be a lot of deficits there that they just haven't programmed for yet. And that is a concern. So your health insurance funding is guided by the medical necessity of what autism is. And if you have questions about that, you can go online and just search and see what the diagnosis of autism is and see what your child is not doing and bring that to the BCBA, because she just may not know. Because I love our parents on so many levels, but we do have some parents who are so positive, and that positive actually hurts them about their child, because they're reporting good things. And of course, as a parent, you know, I always want to talk about the good things my child's doing. And I don't really want to focus on what they can't do or what they're not good at. But for the purpose of ABA, you need to identify, think about, if I wasn't here and this child was on their own, what skill is missing? And be able to communicate that, you know, have that discussion with the supervisor about, you know, what that's like. You know, a lot of times when insurances go back to the supervisor and say this kid's too high functioning, I'll usually look at I'll look at their skills account, and I'll look at the assessment protocol that's been filled out by the parent. And I right away, usually I can spot the inconsistencies. You know, like the parent says, this is a real example from last week that I was reviewing with the supervisor, where I looked at, it was on the Vineland protocol, which is an adaptive behavior. She gave the child a 2 for all toileting needs, but then in the problem session, she wrote about how he has trouble with nighttime toileting and all these things. And it's just that I think he probably uses, his toileting is probably fine when she's there. It's just that you can tell by this other behavior that she needs to remind him and do all these other things. And she just does it. And a lot of parents just naturally help their kid without thinking of it as help. And that 2 should not have been a 2. It should have been a 1, where he sometimes is okay and sometimes he's not. And that alone, I had to go back to the supervisor and said, you actually need to review some of these items, sit down and talk to the parents, because I can tell they're filling this out of like what they think he's good at, you know, versus what is actually happening. And but have that conversation with your BCBA. And if your BCBA is very insistent that they need to reduce, you can ask for their supervisor or QA to hop in and give some suggestions to what maybe needs to be worked on, or just talking to you and just figuring out, like, you know, where the deficits are and how to frame them in your report.
Yeah, and I have the privilege often of, for our card parents, we do PTA meetings on Mondays and Tuesdays, and on Wednesdays I do an orientation. And on tonight's orientation, if you are a card parent, and I apologize to everybody, it's just for card parents, we're talking about challenges that you will face while you're doing ABA and how to overcome them. And this is one of them, is that And often I find, because I will talk to parents every single day, and then I, have an opportunity to talk to their supervisors, and I see that, the supervisor is like, I really want to help this family, and the family is like, we really want the help, but sometimes we as parents, we think that they're mind readers, and they're not. And I've had the situation where a parent came to me, and I'm not saying that this is your circumstance, but recently a parent came to me and said, they're reducing my kiddo's hours. And I said, why? And they were like, I'm not entirely sure. And I was like, well, that's the first question, right? Like, why are you reducing? And then I went and said to the supervisor, just to save time. So before the parent could do it, I was like, hey, I'm just curious, why are you reducing? And they said, oh, because the parent keeps turning down sessions. They're doing dance classes and they're doing Little League, and so we fill out this schedule for them, and they are never using all of their hours, and we can't continue to keep those hours open for them. And I was like, well, that makes complete and total sense. Went back to the parent and said, why aren't you making yourself available for all the hours? And they were like, well, because we can only do dance class at this time. And I said, okay, well, this is a choice then. Do you want the ABA or do you want the dance class? Well, I want the ABA. Well, then for this period of time, you may have to forego the dance class. And the parent was like, well, no, I want different hours. Well, I love you all, but you can't have everything, right? You can't do ABA at 3:00 in the morning. And just like I said, can the dance class be at another time? Well, no, because that's the only time they're giving dance. And the poor parent, it took them a really long time for them to see that card, and all your ABA providers, they're only available during certain hours, just like the dance class. And that here's the empowering reality is that you get to choose, but you have to choose. And if you choose the dance class, no harm, no foul, that's what you chose, but you don't often, if you get to have everything, you're very, very lucky, and I don't know you. Right? So, let's look into it, but make sure you communicate to the supervisor, no, I really want those hours. We're going to prioritize those hours. I want those hours. What do you need from me to make those hours happen? But don't get your hours reduced during a pandemic, especially if you don't know why. Okay, we got a couple of things here. I want to address this one question. Do you recommend a speech pathologist for a speech assessment that was granted by the school in Southern California?
So do you,
and I know this, this parent, I know this parent. So because they've written in before. So they have an assessment through they have an IEE through the school. They can get assessments. So for the speech portion, should they have a speech pathologist do it?
So if I know this person, they should email me, and I need to look at the kid.
There we go.
And I might be able to give recommendations for what test to give. Because one of the things is school speech psychologists or speech therapists, they run the gamut just like everything else on skill level. They can be from really good to really not good. And assessment wise, usually they can do it, but usually the problem is they don't give the right test. So that's what my experience has been. So like I had a child who definitely had speech issues, and I really wanted an assessment, and the person was going to be available. And I said, oh, great, have her do it, but have her do this test, because this test will actually find all of the deficits that we need to find out about. But she didn't listen, and she did this other test. And on that test, he showed up as average. And so then I was very annoyed, but then I said, okay, at that time I was doing a lot of, so I said, let me do this other speech test because we have it at CARD. And I did it, and he was way below average in all the areas because it was a much harder test and more defined. And so then at the IEP, we presented both. And I just said, look, we requested this one because we knew these areas needed more evaluation. And this is why we recommended this one. And the speech therapist was not happy with me, but it was a need. Because on one, it showed he was average, and another one, it showed he had the scores were way below average, like in the bottom 10th percentile across the board. you know? And so it really matters what type of testing they're doing, and it really depends on the kid. And depending on who you are, our kids are also different anyway across the spectrum. That's one of the reasons we can't just tell you what to do. But most of the time, the assessments at the schools they're good at it. The SLPs is just choosing the right one that fits for your child, that will really get to the nitty gritty of what needs to improve, you know, what the deficits are for your child. So if you have access to me, you know my email, and you can email me, and I'll look at your child and try to figure out what would be a good test.
And we have a card parent asking, saying that they would like to come to the PTA meeting and they want my email address. So my email address is s.penrod, PENROD @autism-live.com. But if you will look, maybe look at your spam filter, every Monday morning, I send you an email with that schedule of what's happening on Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. For, I send it so that it gets to the East Coast at 6:30 a.m. So do the math on which time zone you're in. So that it's first thing in your box on Monday morning. But a lot of times until you whitelist it, it goes to your spam. Try to undo that. Whitelist me, because I try only to send you stuff that is useful to you. But happy to have you at those meetings and happy to talk with you. Okay, so somebody else wrote in about the police subject, and they said it's so hard to think that we have to prep our children for these interactions, especially with the police. I had a very hard time with Elijah McClain interaction. Listen, I think, we live in interesting times, right? And I mean that not in the good sense. And I think there are a whole lot of people who are afraid of interaction with the police for various and sundry reasons. And I know a lot of people got fatutzed with me when I was so adamant that we talk about this last month. But I think we have to keep talking about it. I think we have to keep talking about Black Lives Matter. And when folks say to me, but this has nothing to do with autism, it's like, I don't even know what to say, because it has everything to do with autism. First of all, there are a lot of individuals who are on the autism spectrum who are every shade of brown there is, right? So of course it matters that we talk about this. But beyond that, we live in this society, and it should matter to all of us anyway. And that some of these issues we are seeing across the board for people with disabilities as well, including autism. I think it's very much all of our fight. And I do think that, we need to be proactive in every way that we possibly can. We've got to teach our kiddos, how do you interact with the police? And I love Be Safe, the movie, because it doesn't vilify the police. It empowers kids to understand, and adults to understand what is happening. It teaches them perspective taking, because it shows them an incident, and it shows it from the perspective of the kiddo on the spectrum. It shows it from the perspective of the police, and it shows it from the perspective of the community. And it's very enlightening for the kids to see it from the police's point of view. And it shows a kiddo who is, he's in a 7-Eleven or whatever, a corner grocery store, and he gets something and he's walking down the street. And in a different grocery store, there's a theft, and the description matches our kiddo. And he's walking, and the police pull him over and draw guns on him. And it shows, that he's totally innocent, that he's done nothing wrong, but a gun is drawn on him, and what to do. And I think it's important that we do prepare our kids, that we prepare ourselves, that we not put our heads in the sand, that we have discussions. I also wanted to say, we've featured somebody on the show before, an inventor who has made a thing that goes on your dashboard if you're driving with autism, that you don't have to reach to take anything out. It adheres to your dashboard, so that if someone is standing looking in your window, they can see it. I am a driver on the autism spectrum. I have this, it's a sticker that you can put on your dashboard. We have to do everything we can. On the other side, we have lots of individuals who are training the police as well. Mm-hmm. That has to happen. That has to happen. And we all need to be pushing for that. I'm sorry, I just got on a soapbox. Would you like to say anything, Emily?
Well, one of the things that because I've been doing this so long, one of the things I'll recommend it to all the parents I work with is to do kind of what you were saying, Shannon, that you did with Jim, which is, I always recommend families do the local fire station tour, do the local police station tour, so that people can get to know you and your child as they grow up. Because there is an element of safety in that they know who this child is. More people know who he is, so that if they happen to get into a situation where this person is involved, someone will know him, or even if they don't know him directly, they're like, oh, it's that kid that comes in, you know, and come in. I recommend that they go yearly, just like and it's been pretty neat in the smaller cities. Like there's a city that's 2 hours from here where I think the population is 100,000. It's a big tourist trap. The families, they've been doing this since he was 3 and he's in his 20s now. And we always laugh because when he's out and about with his, whoever's with him, people will come up and say hi all the time. And sometimes the person that's with him doesn't know who the person was. And sometimes it's a policeman, sometimes it's a fire. And like, it's random because
Everybody knows him.
Everybody knows him. But it's so cool because even the person with him will say, like, I was a little scared. They came, you know, they approached them.
Yes.
Like, who's the person? But they'll like, hey, and they're saying hi to him, and you know, and he has no problems. Like, you know, he has limited vocalizations, but he can do the hi and the wave and like smile and, you know, all of those things. And how great is that? You know, people know him, and he
has a community.
And as a parent, he's safe. People know him. You know, people know him, that even if the person interacting him with directly may not know, if somebody, you know, if he gets taken into the police, you know, we don't want that to happen, but somebody else will be like, oh yeah, I know that kid. Stop. Yeah. You know, let's go call his parents. They're the family that lives on this street.
Yeah. At Jem's grade school, there was a tree that was planted out front with a plaque because a little girl had died while she was going to school there. She had pediatric cancer and died. And so there was a tree with a plaque, and he was fascinated with it, just fascinated with it. He always wanted to know, what did she die of? Why, you know, fascinated with it, right? And one day there was a thing where they were posting the classes. I think he was in 2nd grade by that point. And they were, you know, you had to go to the school the night before school to see who your teacher was and which class you were in. And everyone, the whole school and all the parents are there. And it's crazy, right? And somebody asked me a question and I blinked and my child was gone. And I sweat, panic, and was screaming his name. And, you know, it was like everybody stopped. Everybody knew him at that point. Everybody stopped. Everybody turned around and somebody said, he's right here. He was by the tree. And I remember thinking, oh, thank goodness we have a community where everybody knows him, and no one looked away, and we were able to find them. We all need to build that as best as we can for our kiddos where we live, which is just amazing. All right, we're starting to run low on time here. Do you have any helpful resources for me being my son's BCA? And I don't know whether they mean BCBA or BCAT. They say I'm doing a parent portion instead of typical virtual ABA sessions. I'm super involved in therapy and willing to do anything. IBT?
Yeah, IBT. You can have, if you have a BCBA consultant, they can give you skills or exercises and things to do, you know, depending on what you want to work on. They can give you instruction and guidance, and not just techniques, but really looking specifically at him and saying, what does he need at this point? I love the parents who really go, like I did a consultation with a family 25 years ago, more than 25 years ago, out in Iowa. And last week I did a road trip and drove by this, they live in a little town of 80. And I wanted to find out what happened to this family. Like, you know, I just really wanted to know. So I started emailing people that I knew that knew them still. And I found out the mom is now a BCBA. And that was so great just to see. And so, you know, like if you're that involved, there's so much, I mean, it's really unending, because all ABA is a method of teaching. That's all it is. Once it's like for our families that have kids who, let's say, love to read and learn to read really early, we're not going to say, no, you can't read. But if we know that child can read and prefers reading, as a neurotypical family, you're going to go and start giving books to that kid because you know that they read. And then this is the same way with ABA. It's teaching our kids how to learn. And once they figure out how that learning goes, the parents can use that as the method of, this is how my child learns. So I'm going to, and you start to teach it naturally because you don't have to think of it. You just know that this works for your kid, and that's how you teach them.
I have a little announcement, and I don't always remember to do this, but Skills and IBT, the Institute for Behavioral Training, have joined forces, and they have been giving away free stuff, free trainings throughout the pandemic. And each week there's an update. So let me read you this week's update. For the educator community, this week they're offering their series, Educator Useful Strategies, and that's available for no charge. So if you want your child's teacher to have this, you're going to want to get a paper and pen ready. I'm going to give you a phone number where you can call to make that available to them. They are also, there's the parent e-learning courses, and they are specifically designed for parents, things to help them with ABA. And they're offering those at no cost right now to parents if they would like, and the whole library is available, but you're going to have to call them, and I'm going to give you the phone number in 1 second. There is also, they have RBT training, which is, it functions as both RBT and BCAT. There's a course that's roughly a 40-hour course, and this is what therapists, the beginning course that they take in order to get classified as a registered behavior technician or a board certified autism technician. That's a RBT or a BCAT. There are additional things you have to do for certification besides taking the coursework, but the coursework is the first part, and it's about 40 hours. Right now, for parents who are highly motivated and want to do that on a case-by-case basis, if you'll call the number I'm about to give you, they are giving grants to parents who are highly motivated to take that course. If you paid for the whole thing, it would be around $440, and they're granting that to families if families want to do exactly like what you're saying. I want to know everything because I want to be the best technician working with my kid right now during the pandemic. In addition to all of this, if you are interested in anything that is a skills related product, whether a membership to Skills or you just want the BIP builder, whatever it is, you can get a 10% discount if you call them and say that you saw it on Autism Live. Say you're friends of Shannon, it's the friends and family discount. So all of these things are available by calling this number. Are you ready? Is your pen poised? 877-975-4559. That's 877-975-4559. Get yourself some free training. And there's something for everybody there, and they're top-notch people like Evelyn and like other expert guests that we have and have had on the show. Okay, so anything you want to add to that, Evelyn?
Nope, I think that there is a wealth of training that's available to you guys right now. And as parents, you go and learn, and you'll start not keeping ABA separately from your daily interaction. It just kind of melds into how you interact, and it's very helpful. Like my kids unfortunately had the experience of learning a lot of ABA without trying. I brought it in without knowing.
Okay, so I got a couple of questions that I want to get to before we're out of time here. And somebody wrote in and said, I just had a friend who's a mom of a 2-year-old, and they just started ABA. She said that the BCBA did an intake, asked her questions, and now an RBT is taking ABC data. She said no assessment was done. They haven't told mom any skills they are working on. The mom said the RBT has no paperwork with her when she's with her son and only spends about 30 minutes with him. The rest of the time she's on her laptop. What are your thoughts?
Well, anything that she's typed, we are in that electronic age now where things are digital as opposed to paper, and everybody is at their varying stages of accepting that as data or not. But she should be engaging. All ABC data is what's the behavior, what happens before the behavior, and what did you do after the behavior. So it's in the ABA world, that's completely valid. If she's writing down all this information, if she writes it down and she sends it to the supervisor, you have the right to access it because it's a medical record. So you can ask for a copy of what she's doing. And that's basically the way of assessing a behavior, okay, a challenging behavior. As opposed to, as the idea of they didn't do any assessment, there is a question about, when your friend's child got the diagnosis, was there a full neuropsych assessment done at that point? There should have been, in order to get a diagnosis. You don't need it, but to be thorough in terms of documenting deficits, and what the child's able to do and not do, you should have given them a diagnostic report that should have had all this information, testing on it. And one of the things that is lacking in the ABA world is BCBAs are not trained to read diagnostic assessments or neuropsych assessments. So if that is an issue, you do want to go back to whoever did the testing and the diagnosis. And maybe you want to have your BCBA collaborate with that person so that they could interpret all the information for the BCBA and the BCBA, to know what the child can and can't do or what the deficit areas are. That is an opportunity that isn't used widely enough by families. I have that training, so I go back and I'm always deep into neuropsych assessments, but not a lot of BCBAs do. But that is something that you can have your BCBA collaborate with whoever did the testing to just do the interpretation and tell them. But otherwise, if you have a BCBA and an RBT and they're collecting that type of data, all of that is valid because they're going to put together what we call a behavior intervention plan from that information that the RBT has been writing down. And then from that, they should also have a whole skill acquisition section of replacement behaviors that the child should be learning. And one thing great about starting at 2 is they're behind, but they're not that behind. And what they're behind with is really basic skills like non-vocal imitation, learning just how to use their body and imitate, behaviors, how to do vocalizations. It's developing those fine motor skills or oral motor skills so that they can have the ability to do that type of imitation. And that 2-year-olds are in the play, attending to stimuli around them, just really great things like that. And so sometimes at a 2-year-old level, it doesn't look like work, and that's okay.
Okay. Probably the last question of the day. My question may sound immature, but my daughter has GDD, which I believe is global developmental delays associated with cognitive delay. So she's not considered autistic, but a lot of similarities exist. But when it comes to therapy, she misses out on ABA. It's so frustrating because she is 7, but only 2 cognitively. But correct me if I'm wrong, Evelyn, we're seeing more and more families that are getting a prescription for ABA with diagnoses that are not autism, but where the child could also benefit from ABA. Am I wrong?
You are right, but it's also dependent on the state you live in, on that recognition. So there's ABA is a pretty new field. So there isn't a lot of research about helping other populations. There's more now, like for the ADHD realm of folks, there was a research article that came out, I think like 2 years ago, that said behavioral training progress was equivalent to medication progress. And that made the opening for a lot of like getting ABA for ADHD and a few other types of diagnoses, but it's not a widely accepted. So you might have to fight, on this end. And then this is where she's 7. So it's very valuable for you to figure out how to get these services, whether it's through ABA in school or ABA through like more of, in California, it'd be regional centers. trying to get, assistance in another way. It may not be, there is no law that supports ABA for medical necessity for health insurance carriers. But if she has enough symptoms that resemble autism, we have had a few insurances be okay with it, but that's only been in California. It's been nowhere else.
But I also want to say to this parent that, there were many years when insurance didn't cover ABA, and there were families that didn't have an ABA provider, and they trained people and they did it on their own. And it's terrible and it's hard and it's, it's unthinkable, but they did it and were very successful. So I'm going to continue to talk about, because we have a couple of questions that just came in about the IBT, but that would apply to you as well if you want to try that. So somebody said, what is the name of the company is providing e-learning resources? It's the Institute for Behavioral Training, IBT for short, but Institute for Behavioral Training, and their website is ibehavioraltraining.com. ibehavioraltraining.com. And somebody said, if I'm a parent and complete the coursework, where can I go to become certified? Do I need in-center hours? And if I am a card parent, where do I complete those hours? This is a very sticky wicket. And I know a lot of parents have written to us, and I don't really have a good, solid answer for you. You do have to do hours, a lot of hours, in order to be eligible for your certification. The one thing I can tell you for sure is that you cannot do them with your own child, and you cannot do them at your child's center. We have had people who are parents, who are card parents, who have applied for a job and been hired to be a therapist at a different location where their child is not at. And those people have gone through the certification with card just fine, but they are at a totally different location. And it's like a wall gets put down between them and everything business having to do with their child. Like, what do they call that? There's a wall, they call it a wall. So in any case, that is a possibility. Other than becoming an employee of card, you have to go look. Usually you have to be somebody's employee to get those hours. I'm so sorry that people are writing questions in last minute.
I have to go.
I know, and I have to go too. I have another meeting. So I will try to address this, but I see that another parent has already written to that parent. But we have to go. Evelyn, thank you so much for being here. We always appreciate the time that you take to be with us. We adore you.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. I'm going to say to you guys tomorrow, you can go, Evelyn. You don't have to stick around for this last 30 seconds. Tomorrow on the show, we are having Bonnie Yates Martinez back on the show. We've had her before from Fullerton Cares. Robin is a BCBA. She also has a diagnosis that she got late in life and has a couple of kids on the spectrum. And she's amazing. She is also someone who is trained in dance. She works very closely with Fullerton Cares. They have a dance program that they've been doing for years. She put together something called Peer Buddies so that there are teens in the community that she trains to be able to help, so that it's this very inclusive environment and everybody's really successful. Well, with the pandemic, she took it online and it's available to you wherever you live. You don't have to live in Fullerton. Like this is crazy, right? It's available to you and to your kiddos wherever you live. She's going to be with us tomorrow to talk about what they're doing online and how wildly successful it is. Whether you are about to send a kid back to a hybrid thing and you want to have tips and tricks for how to learn, in this format for your kiddo, she's got it for you. If you are looking for something for your kid to do these last few weeks before school, she's got it for you and it's free. So you're not going to want to miss it. That's tomorrow. You got to be here or you'll miss it. I got to go. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now. Thanks for being here.
The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're coming to you live on this Thursday morning. And we're live in a lot of different locations today. Very excited to be here with you. You're going to love my guests. I've already gotten weepy looking at some of the stuff they sent me. So stop. It's already going to be there. Thrilled that you guys are here with us this morning. We are going to be with you live for the next hour, and we hope that it's interactive because we get the most fun when we are having a conversation with you in the many different ways that we can have a conversation. Want to remind you that if you're watching us live on this Thursday morning, August 6th, can you believe that it's already August? I can't believe that. If you're watching us live this morning, you're watching us either on YouTube or on Facebook or on Periscope or Twitter or on our homepage, autism-live.com. Now, most of the places that I just listed off have a way for you to write into us. I got to be honest that right now, the two best ways, because of technical issues and lottie and gremlins, the two best ways to get a hold of us live are to be talking with us on YouTube or on Facebook Live. Those are the two easiest ways to get a hold of us right now. Or you could email me at s.penrod@autism-live.com. Although I will tell you, it's very rare that I check my email while we're in the show, especially because now we don't take breaks. We used to take little commercially breaks. We really aren't doing a lot of that. So I would say Facebook and YouTube are your best shot right now of talking to me during the show. When the show is not live, it's much better if you email and send that over to me. Live feature on our website is a little hit and miss right now at the moment. So I'm not counting on it, and I want to encourage you not to count on it right now. But we love to hear from you in all the different ways that we hear from you. I got to tell you, it's like our biggest thrill to talk with you guys. So please feel free to write into us and let us know your thoughts, your feelings, your questions, your concerns. Hey, we're here. Our mission is to provide information and inspiration. And that's really personal to me because I am a mom of an individual who was diagnosed with autism at a very early age. And he's 17 now, and he's, my light, my love. But I know sometimes that no matter where you are in this journey with autism, and by the way, we include everyone in our community. So it starts with individuals who are themselves diagnosed and on the spectrum, right? They are the beating core of this community, but we include all the people that love them. So it's like here and here, right? The people who are orbiting them. We're a part of this community that we're talking to as well. We want to help everybody. We know that it's not one size fits all, that everybody has their own starting point and their own journey. And we always want to pay homage to that. The spectrum of individuals in the autism community is that, a spectrum. And everybody's on their own journey. They need their own things, and we can't ever carte blanche anything. But the thing that we all agree on is that individuals on the spectrum deserve respect, dignity, autonomy, the ability to be in control of whatever they are capable of being in control of, and that they need resources and support to be able to be independent in as many things as they possibly can. They need jobs, they need employment, they need people to love them as they are and to help them. Listen, all of us are working on things. Whether you're on the spectrum or not, all of us are working on things. So the fact that you might need support with something does not mean that you get any less dignity, any less opportunity, right? I think we can all rally around that point. And then the rest of it, we can, take what fits and discard what doesn't. That's what I encourage you to do. So that's what we're doing here. We love to hear from you. Because I am a grateful mom of a wonderful individual who did get diagnosed at an early age and had some challenges. It's so important to me, the deal that I made on my bedroom floor in the middle of the night when I was praying and saying, please, God, help me to help my kiddo. Don't let me be the mom who drops this ball. Don't let that be my story, right? And I sat right there and I said, help me to help my child. And I promise if you help me, I will help whoever I can. So that's why I'm here. Don't confuse me for an expert, right? Confuse me for somebody who loves you and wants what's best for you. Yes, absolutely confuse me for that person. And confuse me for somebody who has great connections, having hosted shows about autism for more than a decade now. I've met some people. I have some phone numbers. I have a few emails. I know how to ask questions from people who have answers. So use me as a resource, utilize me. I love, I love me some Oprah. If you watch the show, you know, I love me some Oprah. And Oprah says she gets up every morning and she sings that song, use me up. And I love that. Utilize me, use me to get what you need, the answers that you need. I love that. That makes me very happy. I want to just stop and say hi to Laurie and say good morning to Jacinda. We got a lot to cover today. I see that somebody's already written in a question. My 4-year-old nonverbal grandson with autism is starting to display aggressive and violent meltdowns. My daughter and I are both have to hold him down. Our arms are always scratched and bruised, trying to keep him from hurting himself. Should we get him reevaluated to see if it's more than autism? You know, again, not an expert, but I'm going to say to you, I'm going to ask you, you're a grandparent. So I assume that you're over the age of 27. Right. And so, you know, you're an adult and you probably have a driver's license and you've probably held a job in your life and people look at you and think of you as an adult, right? If aliens came and captured you today and took you to another planet and they, you know, their configuration of where their eyes were was different than what it is for us, and they spoke a different language and they didn't understand if you signed to them or if you spoke to them, they didn't understand. I just want to ask you, how long before you would throw a tantrum? How long before you would start throwing things because you needed something to eat, drink, you were hot, you were cold, you had to go to the bathroom, or you just wanted to know what the heck's going on? Where am I? Why am I here? I figure that I would have about between 11 and 14 minutes before I would lose and I would start biting people and scratching them and kick. And I'm a reasonable person with a driver's license, right? And people look at me like I'm an adult, but I figure 11 to 14 minutes before I would snake out. Because if you can't get your needs met, what do you have at your disposal? And, you know, I don't know whether your grandson has an additional diagnosis to autism, but what you've told me is that he's nonverbal and he's 4. And if he doesn't have functional communication, if he doesn't quickly get away so that he can say to you, enough, I'm done playing with this toy, or I need to go to the bathroom, or that noise is making me crazy, or I'm tired, or I'm cold. If he doesn't have a way to say those things, he will aggress. My arms used to be covered with bruises from my kiddo biting me. And my kiddo's getting ready to apply to Harvard. So I want to fill you with hope. I want to fill your bucket with hope and say, this does not have to be the way he communicates, but we've got to get him functional communication. And at 4, we probably want to jump right to functional communication, pairing it with speech to see if we can get to speech, but we need to get to functional communication like right now. Now, that looks a lot of different ways for a lot of different people. You know, some people functionally communicate with sign language, and I love sign language, but the problem with sign language is not everybody knows it. And so we need to make sure that he's got a way that everybody can understand him. So you probably want to be looking at getting an iPad, and there's the app that everybody uses, and it's expensive, is Proloquo to go. Easy, right? There are ones that are really good that are free or like an 18th of the cost of Proloquo, but probably at some point somebody's going to tell you to get Proloquo. So, but I just want to say to you that like right now, the thing you can do to help is it your daughter or your daughter-in-law? And the thing that you can do to help your grandson, we have to give him functional communication. If an iPad is off the table and you know, it's going to take you months to get funding for it from insurance or a grant or whatever, I want you to look up Picture Exchange Communication. It's PECS, Picture Exchange Communication. You could start that today, but he's got to have a way to say yes, no, more, hot, cold, hurt, right? We've got it. And you will see there's something called the Magic X. When we're doing a graph and we're showing how much a child is aggressing, right? And that's, you know, it's way up here, right? And how much a child is being able to express their needs, and that's way down here. When we start to make this number go up so that they're starting to express themselves, this number goes like this, and you will see a magic X on his graphs because they're directly related. If I can't get my needs met, I'm going to bite you. And I think if we just, because we get scared, right? I was scared. Is my child a monster? Is he going to be a person who aggresses at people his whole life? No. If he had a way of communicating, then he didn't need to aggress. And even people who aren't on the spectrum, for a lot of people, if we gave them an appropriate way to communicate, they wouldn't need to aggress. But we know for sure for a 4-year-old on the autism spectrum, they will aggress if they cannot get their needs met. Let's give them functional communication. It's going to change your life. We don't normally do that this early in the morning. Good morning, Bonnie. Hi, Nasser. Sapphire, good morning. And somebody under the name of Fat God, I have no idea what that means, but they said, is autism and Asperger the same thing? Well, they're under the same umbrella, autism spectrum disorder. They look very different, but under the new classification, they are under the same umbrella. There is no more, in the current diagnosis, there is no more Asperger's. There's Asperger type, autism Asperger type. So sending you a virtual hug, Jacinda. And hey, Jeremy, hello, good morning. All right, you guys, it's time. We like to start the morning with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to figure out what in the hey nani are those experts talking about? Why do they use these terms? Why are they trying to turn our brains into applesauce? What we do here is that we take the acronym, the phrase, whatever it is, the term, we give you the actual definition whenever possible. I make fun of that because really that's all it's good for. And then we try to give you a working definition and an example so that we can all start to understand these terms in the hopes that it saves us time and energy and money. That's what we're all about. Hey, Christina. So awesome here. I love that people are doing the elbow cough. Okay, so today's jargon term, couldn't wait to get to this one, gross motor skills. Earlier this week, we did fine motor skills, and we see that those two kind of go in hand. People talk about them, they'll say, oh, the fine motor skills and the gross motor skills. And I remember hearing that, and I was like, are gross, I thought gross as in disgusting. And I was like, are we talking about bowel movements here? What are we talking about here? It's not that. Gross also means large. And so let's take a look at what our actual definition for gross motor skills are. I assume it's not that bad of a definition. Gross motor skills, the abilities required in order to control the large muscles of the body for intentionally coordinated movement. It's not that bad. There's not much to make fun of. But I still don't know what it is. And if I have a 4-year-old who's on the spectrum, I'm like, what does this have to do with me? Why would this be important? Why do I need to know this? And I do need to know this. So let's move on to our working definition and see if we can't make some heads or tails out of this. Dun, da, da, da. It's the larger movements in an individual which make their arms, legs, feet, or their entire body move, crawling, running, and jumping. Okay, so we all have these amazing machines that we're living in, our bodies. We're little ecosystems, and we each have our own ecosystem. And there's a certain amount of stuff we got to put in and a certain amount of stuff that we have to put out. And if it gets out of balance, we get out of whack. And for people who have sensory issues, which is a lot of our kids and a lot of us and a lot of adults on the spectrum, not on the spectrum, right? If we don't get enough movement of our large muscles in our body, we get out of whack. And sometimes that manifests in anxiety, sensory overload, and an inability to regulate ourselves. Woo! Suddenly this got much more important, right? So I have a friend who did not have boys on the spectrum, but when I had my son, there were a lot of us that were in the same age range that had lots of boys just all at once, right? And her boys were a few years older than our boys, and they were just the most polite, regulated, kind gentleman. And we would always say, Renee, what is it you're doing? How is it that your boys, like you say, come on, it's time to go, and you don't get all this, like, what's your secret, Renee? And Renee, who is an amazing midwife doula and an earth mother, right? She would say, oh, I just run them like they're dogs. I keep them very busy. They swim every day. I make sure that they're running. I keep them in constant motion because it regulates them. And I was like, Regamada? What is that? And that was right before my son was diagnosed with autism. Over the years, as we've had OTs on the show, and they talk about how important it is for our kids to do heavy work. And that sounds like putting them on a chain gang, right? But it's not. It's like moving, like, you know, one of the things when people say to me, I don't know what to do, we're housebound in this pandemic, I don't know what to do. And one of the things I say is rearrange the furniture and have your kids push the couch and push the ottoman and move the chair and pull this over here and, you know, put stuff in the laundry basket and have them pull it through the house. Put one of the kids in the laundry basket and have them push them across the house. And you will see that there is an impact of that heavy work that your kids have this sort of glow effect afterwards. They're kind of breathing hard, but they've moved the muscles and they've used them in a way that feels, it releases things in their bodies. I don't know the whole physiology of it, but it helps them to regulate. You might find that they're more focused for a period of time afterwards, and that things that otherwise would bug them sensory wise, they can regulate a little bit better. So gross motor, super duper important now, right? Now suddenly you're like, oh, where do I learn more about this? So there's tons of information about gross motor activities for our kiddos. I love going to Pinterest for these kinds of things. And on Pinterest, you can go to Autism Live, you can follow our boards. And I put a whole board at the beginning of the pandemic that's just gross motor stuff. And then I put some gross motor stuff in other categories. Check out the boards that I've got there, but check out the gross motor. When I'm talking to you guys about making an obstacle course in your living room, gross motor, and it's fun and our kids learn, and we want our kids. Sometimes it's interesting that we had the question about Asperger's. One of the hallmarks of Asperger's is that those kiddos maybe speak a little bit faster, but have a hard time with the back and forth, right? But speech comes generally, not always, but generally earlier, and they're a little bit more uncoordinated. They have a hard time coordinating, you know, their brain to their body. They need the gross motor. For those of you who have kids that you've written in and you said, my kid climbs me or is pulling on me or sticking his chin on me, gross motor is a really good thing. Now I sound like Martha. Okay, so I love me some gross motor, and good OT can do this with you. Good therapists will do some gross motor stuff with your kids to get their yayas out so that they can focus. So what is ritualistic behavior and ritualistic, is that Asperger's? So there's a part of the diagnosis of autism that has to do with ritualistic behavior, and that means doing things in a pattern. So, you know, they have to turn around 3 times before they sit down to work. Or, you know, a lot of people, kiddos will line cars up, or, you know, we have to check the doorknob 5 times, or we can't wear the red underwear with the blue pants, right? That it's like regimented behaviors that, no, if you hear somebody say, no, it has to be this way, I'm like that. No, I can't do this first. The steps are this, it has to be done in this order. Then it becomes ritualistic because it's a ritual that you have to do to feel okay. You know, I have this, so I tend to think that everybody has this, but my husband doesn't have that. My son had it when he was little. I think I'm the only person left in the house that has this. But it absolutely is one of the things on the list of diagnosis for autism. It is not the only thing. And you can have autism without having that. And you can have this and not qualify for an autism diagnosis. So it's just one of a list of things that if you have, makes you more eligible if you have other things on the list. And I don't think that, I think that a lot of people with Asperger's have this, but not all. And a lot of people who have an autism diagnosis have this, but not all. And I don't know, like, you know, what the statistics are about how many to how many, but, you know, it is something that can be worked on and that can be better. It's hard. It's not the easiest behavior to take care of, but it can be worked on. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. We have a question for you. I gotta get, because I got guests waiting. So our question of the day, after our definitions here, I don't know what it is, Traven, so you got to show it on the screen, and my computer screen is showing me 85 million things right now. Okay, so this is a great question. I'm glad that it goes. What gross motor activities do you enjoy? Like, there are some gross motor activities that you don't enjoy, but what do you enjoy? And I bring that up because it's important to know that what you like isn't necessarily what the other people in your life like, isn't necessarily what your kiddo likes. So it's important when you're doing gross motor activities, we want for them to be rewarding and we want them to happen on a regular basis. If not every day, certainly many times during the week. But I think for kiddos on the spectrum, it's a good thing to shoot for this every day to get to that self-regulation piece. So what do you enjoy? What do they enjoy? It's not equal and even. I'm not a treadmill person, but I'm treadmilling right now, and I'm starting to enjoy it only because I'm pairing it with other things, because I need to be doing it every day. Okay, I got a couple more questions here, and then we're going to get to our guests. Our topic, what's our topic this week, Traven, so I can get to these? Hello, Parker. Glad to have you back. Hi, Bonnie. Oh yeah, one size doesn't fit all. This is going to fit really well with what I'm about to say. So somebody asked, do you guys plan to put out the A-Word series back on YouTube? I love the series. I learned so much from it. You know, we hope so. We took it down at the request of Jack Riley's parents because he's at an age where they want him to be able to sort out and then choose for himself if he's okay with it. So we're kind of like giving him some space and letting him see. But yes, it was wonderful. They loved it too. They loved being of service to the community, and we're hopeful, but you know, we want to do what's best for that young man. Hi, Yusarika. I hope I said your name right. Okay, one last question. Can mild autism be cured completely? And Jacinda said she loves to dance, and you're going to love our guests. I just want to say that in the autism community, I think the vast majority of us have come to respect that the term cure has no place. That I appreciate the question, but I want to be really clear that what our friends on the autism spectrum have told us is that when we talk about curing autism, and they identify so completely as being autistic, and for adults on the spectrum, many of them do identify that way. I am an autistic, I am autistic. The younger group of kids, like, you know, the generation of kids that I know refer to themselves as being on the spectrum and think of themselves as, you know, autism is something that it's a difference in their brain, and they don't think of themselves as being autistic. And I do think it's a generational thing to a large extent. But in either case, the term cured like doesn't have a place. And I don't think anybody has figured out what the actual word is. But here's what I can tell you is that you can be diagnosed with an autism spectrum disorder. And only when you only qualify for disorder if it is impacting your life and you cannot be living your life without support. And so they call it a disorder. We can argue about whether that's accurate, but that's the current determination, right? If you're asking me, do people ever get to the point where they don't have a disorder anymore and don't qualify for that diagnosis? All the time, all the time. Does it mean that their brain still works differently than mine? Yes, but it's not a disorder. I hope that we will get to the point where we can refer to autism spectrum I don't know. I don't like any of the words that are coming to mind, but that we can also look at the fact that autism brains, for me, it's like the difference of, do you use an Apple, a Mac, or do you use a PC? They're both great. They both process in different ways. But you're used to be that there were things that you could do on a PC that you couldn't do on a Mac. And then they invented apps. And now a Mac can do very similar in a different way, process in a totally different way as a PC, and vice versa. Now there are programs that you can add that make your PC more like a Mac. This is how I view autism. They process in different ways. Both are valid. Both are good. And if you want to be able to do something that the other one can do, you install an app and you can do it. And that's where I want to be. Open to other people. Let's see if anybody has strong feelings about that, because everybody gets to have their opinion. Okay, but we're late for our guests and they're fabulous. So Robin Yates Martinez is joining us from Everybody Dance Now and Fullerton Cares. And I don't know if her peer buddy guest is joining us at the same time, but that's Kaitlyn, Lauryn, Wilson. There's Robin Yates. There they are. I'm late, you guys. I apologize. I had questions and I couldn't let them go. But I am so thrilled to have both of you here. Let's start with talking about Robin Yates Martinez for a quick second. She is an amazing expert in the field of autism that I have so much respect for. I first met Robin because she came to be on the show because she was working with Fullerton Cares, doing this amazing work that she's still doing that we're going to be talking about in a second. But I was so taken with her. I was like, I just want to work more with this woman. She's just got a very unique view on this world. And shortly after that, she came and was, tell us what your title was at Skills, Robin, because I'm not going to remember that. But you held a very important position and role with Skills that I talk about all the time here on the show. Tell them what you did with Skills.
So I had an awesome job with Skills, and it was the most unique job in the world. I'll probably never have another job like it again, but I was the implementation specialist. And so I had the pleasure of working, including traveling. So I would do in-person training, but I did a lot of webinar training and consultation with therapists and parents on how to utilize the Skills curriculum and implement that in their homes or clinics, how to take data. It was just fantastic. And during that time, I worked very closely with Evelyn.
Yes, we love Evelyn. Evelyn.
Yes, and you love her hair. So that was, I learned a lot, and I'm still utilizing what I learned when I did that job today.
Well, but you helped so many people with Skills. I love me some Skills, and I talk about it here. I wax poetic about Skills, but a lot of people go to Skills and feel overwhelmed and go, I don't know how to get. It's like going to Disneyland, and there's so many things to do, and you can't do all of them at the same time. But what I loved was that Robin was this wonderful tour guide for people to say, what is it you need? What are, and to get them an entree so that then they could use as many of the things and Skills that they wanted to. You were a game changer at Skills, and we miss you. But Robin has gone on, to do many things and work with many individuals. She's a brilliant BCBA, and we just adore her. She's a mover and a shaker. She's a get it done kind of person. And when I have always loved what you have done with Everybody Dance Now, but when you wrote to me the other day and said what you guys have been doing in the pandemic, I thought I was just going to plot. I was like, holy Christmas. We got to get her on here. So that's Robin, and Robin's going to talk to us about what Everybody Dance Now is and what their affiliation with Fullerton Care is. There's so much to talk about, but I can't let it go. We have to introduce this fabulous, beautiful young woman, Kaitlyn Lauryn Wilson. And Kaitlyn, it's my understanding that you are nothing short of a genius. From what I hear, you are an amazing dancer. but you are a brilliant human being, and that you are a perfect example of what a peer buddy is. And we'll explain to people what that is in a minute. But I am so moved. How old are you?
15.
Yeah. Well, at 15, Kaitlyn has figured out more than many people I know. So I can't wait to talk with her and talk about what this topic. So let's not belay it anymore. So Robin, first of all, tell us, what is Everybody Dance Now and what's the affiliation with Fullerton Cares?
Okay, so Everybody Dance Now was born over 7 years ago, and it's a passion of mine, is performing arts. So dance, music, comedy, and that's what I've always loved. And my children love that. And my youngest son was dancing at CF Dance Academy, started when he was just 3. And he really, really enjoyed it. And I had shared with the owner of the dance academy that I would love to have something for my oldest son, who was severely impacted by autism. And he did not have, once he aged out of Gymboree, he didn't have anything that was where he could sing songs and do that sort of thing, that was at his level, but also age appropriate. And I just really wanted something for him. And so she knew about my background also in as a behavior specialist. And so we talked about the logistics of starting a dance program for kiddos that were on the spectrum or had other disabilities, and particularly being able to individualize it for kiddos that were in the mod severe range. And so she said, you know what, let's give it a go. And we were full from the first class, and we've had the program ever since. And so I was also the community outreach director, and still am, for Fullerton Cares at this time too. So I was within my role in that scope to go ahead and implement the program. And so I took basically a level 1 hip hop curriculum and modified it for a mod severe population, and then a wider age group. And what I'm here to talk about today is the most exciting part and component of our Everybody Dance Now program is, and another program that I ended up starting later that we'll talk about, is we have a inclusive component. And so a lot of it, not to discredit any other classes or anything, but there are classes that pop up, dance, taekwondo, things like that for kiddos with special needs. But then we don't see typically developing kiddos in there either. And so we remember that we're always wanting to promote inclusion. So our dance program took kids that were interested at CF Dance, dancers that were there that wanted to come in as peer buddies. So every one of our students was paired up with someone pretty close in age with them. And then I trained our peer buddies on how to provide basic behavior support. So what behaviors to kind of pretend to ignore, what we could do to support a decrease in behavior, certain prompting skills and prompt hierarchy even. So learning how we can maybe have to partial physical prompt at first the dance moves, but then back off. And then now we're doing gestural prompts. And so it was just really, really exciting, because soon I had these peer buddies that were very young at the time. Katie started, I guess, well, if you're 15 minus 6, you were pretty young when you started out, and I was able to train them, and they were supporting, behavior interventionist quality support, and everyone was just always really taken aback by that. And so fast forward, the program's been going on for 7 years. Katie's been with us for 6. And so we have now real friendships that were established 5, 6, 7 years ago, and they're staying together. So now I have a child who's severely impacted by autism, and he's got a long-term friend. I didn't think that was going to be a thing. And so, I mean, like that was not, I wanted a program for him, and I had high hopes, but that surpassed all my hopes. And so as we got further and further into this, a core group of buddies that had just always been there, which is Kaitlyn, and Emma and Ryan, which is Katie's brother, and Gabriella. And she is the buddy I was talking about. That's my son Ian's actual friend. She comes to his birthday parties. She's there for him. And my other buddies I mentioned, they're the same way. They've got these long established relationships now with the kids that they've supported. And so that's just been beautiful for me. And I'm really, really thankful about it. And, I just really started thinking we could use this story to inspire other teenagers. And it's like, what can we do? I think we're all trapped in our house with the pandemic, and we feel like maybe if we're not suffering as much as another group is, we want to make a difference. We want to feel better about our situation. And so I was like, we can harness the awesome power of being trapped in our house and do some positive things. And so I felt one of the most positive things would be to get Katie's story out there and the other stories of our peer buddies and how they've really, really made a difference, so that others can learn how they can immediately start making a difference too. Because it's just been exciting. So out of this program that was Everybody Dance Now, spawned another program, which is called Come As You Are for Rockers of All Abilities, and that's at School of Rock Tustin. And again, that was born out of my
we're showing some pictures.
Oh, yes, that's Ian doing our Zoom class. and so yeah, the Come As You Are class, that was just born out of my youngest son, again, being at School of Rock Tustin, and my saying to the general manager, I would love to have something for my oldest son. And so this program was born, and I needed peer buddies for this program too. And I didn't get a lot of interested kids. And so Katie and Ryan and Emma, said, okay, we don't play music, we're dancers, but we'll give it a shot. And they have been instrumental in my rock and roll class as well, which has just been phenomenal. And for me has really meant a lot to me, because they've just been instrumental. And so for my 4 buddies that had just been with us 6 and 7 years, I created more of a title, more of a leadership role, because they were asking me, what else can I do? What else can we do? And so I created for them and started calling them my pals, but I spell it PAAALS, and it stands for, Fullerton Care's mission statement is the 3 A's. So awareness, acceptance, and action, right? Because, okay, you can accept, you can be aware, but what are we going to do to support? And so it's, it's peer awareness, acceptance, action, leaders or liaisons. And so they have recruited other kids to volunteer and become peer buddies, and they train those kids. And so they just really, really go out of their way, again, moving out of dance and just supporting at our programs, not because they're an expert in the subject matter, but because now they're little experts in actually providing that support and friendship. And so when the pandemic hit, my pals reached out to me and said, what are we going to do about dance or Come As You Are? And I said, I don't know, let me figure something out. And lo and behold, our Zoom class was born, and that's called Everybody Rock the House. Because I said, how are we going to mash up both classes? And, and I didn't really know how I was going to go about this. I'm an expert in the music part, but not the dance part. I usually have support from dance instructors and from my buddies. And then that's, again, why I want to tell Katie's story. Katie ended up stepping up and becoming my junior community outreach director, because she's been such an integral force in this Zoom program. And so I would just love to talk to, have her talk about her experience in our programs, and then talk about what it's been like transferring what she's learned out in the community and doing it in a Zoom setting. That's my son, and there's Katie helping him play the drums.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, Katie, you've been so patient. We've said a lot of nice things about you, but we haven't really let you talk. Welcome to Autism Live. I guess I want to start with, why did you get started with doing peer buddies?
So I started like doing peer buddies because like I'm really invested in dance, and community like service is really important in my family. Like they teach us that from like when we were born. So like combining those two is like the best like combination that I could possibly like get, because it's doing two things that I love in one like place. And like I love seeing the kids and how they grow through like dancers and as children, and how the one-on-one connection between me and the students is like so special to them, and gaining their trust is also very special to me. And it's just amazing to see how far these kids can go with the help of a peer buddy.
Well, and there's a lot of people who are watching who are like, well, this young lady is remarkable, and how amazing that she has gifted her time to these kiddos. But it's my understanding that you feel like you've gotten something out of this. Can you talk a little bit about what you've gotten out of it?
So what I've gotten out of it, the most important thing is the connection between student and myself. So I have two buddies, Cynthia and Melody. And during these uncertain times, I've been checking up on them, like sending them a story, me reading them a story, or sending them little gifts so that they still have that little bit of connection with me and they don't like lose it during these times. And then the second reason is that like I've also, it's just really like coming from my heart. Like I love seeing like how like all these kids and all their connections with us, and it's just very like heartwarming to see like how much like the trust in them can go into like a teenager like me just trying to help them get out of their box and dance.
What a wonderful, wonderful thing. What a gift you are to us. But you're a very busy teenager. You do a lot of different things, right? Excuse me. And this is a time commitment. What are the challenges for you? Is this hard to commit to?
Yes, sometimes time management is a big problem because I'm on dance team at school, and for dance we have to do a certain amount of classes. So sometimes it's very like hard to make it to class, but we still make it work. I will like send in a friend to substitute for me, or I'll have my brother help me out and take my buddy, so that they're not just like left out in the open.
It's just remarkable to think about this. And I know that a lot of us are trying to get our heads around this, because in life, I just was having a conversation with a parent yesterday who was saying that a relative, when they found out that her child was diagnosed with autism, uninvited them to a family gathering. And we were talking about the ignorance of that kind of a reaction. And here you are, you're a teenager, and you volunteered your time to be a friend to people that you're not even related to. We just need to clone you and fill the world with
people. That's what I always say.
Right? And Robin, can I just pay homage to you that I know that that's part of what you've done through creating this program, is that, you don't just leave it at one person, that you are making more peer buddies, so that in essence, you are cloning the Katies of the world and making more of them. And they bring their own flavor, right?
Yeah,
they're not
definitely. There's definitely only one Katie though. But the nice thing about this having gone on so long, and what's just been remarkable is now, and why I had to promote her in leadership, is because now I don't have to train everyone. I can say, Katie, this is the new peer buddy, like stand by her, show her what to do, support her. She's with this dancer. And because, if Katie even hasn't worked with all of our kids, but like she's been in it for so long, she knows them, she knows what they're gonna need. And I always tell her, like, just give her own classroom. Like, let's just skip to that. She's just really, really good. She's therapist quality. I mean, you heard her. She covers her shifts. Like, who does that? I have grown people that.
Katie, I know who would hire you. I have a place that would hire you. You're just not quite old enough yet. But honestly, Robin, I would like to say to you, and you may already be thinking about this, that your peer buddies, once they graduate from high school, I would like to create a pipeline to them becoming therapists while they're at college. Can we please talk about that?
Yes. Well, you can ask Katie. I tell her all the time, like, the day you turn 18, this is happening. If you're going to work your way through college, if you have to have a job, then have this job, because it's a good one and you're ready.
Over you. We will fight over you.
Yes.
But I also want to say that Robin, you've got to write a book about how you trained these peer buddies, because there are people who don't know how to do these things for their own child, and you're training a 10-year-old to do it, to the point where at the age of 15, she's an elder statesman and can, train others to do it. Stop! You got to write that book. Please.
No, I really want to. It is a passion of mine to get this out there. That's why I've always appreciated you having me on the show, so that we can talk about it, because it's a doable thing. Like, I'm a busy mom. My oldest son has a lot of concerns and needs. I work and stuff like that. And so if I was able to pull this off, I couldn't be the only one that could pull this off. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And there is only one Katie Wilson, and there's only one Ryan Wilson. There's only one Emily. There's only one Gabriella Top. Those are my four, like, core of my heart. But that being said, that's what I'm always saying too, is let's get these stories out there about our peer buddies and pals, because they couldn't be the only ones. We can do this. We can start a thing.
I'm challenging you. You write the book and let each one of them write a chapter in it about what it was like for them. And I will devote showtime to talking about the book as soon as you have it ready.
Thank you.
The book needs to happen. Okay. But I also promised our viewers, and by the way, I don't know which one or both of you, but they're calling you Earth Angels, our viewers. So I think it's a combo of both of you. But you had mentioned to me when we were talking about this, Robin, that because you're doing, is it one or both of the classes on Zoom, that there's an opportunity for people watching to participate. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So I made up like a hybrid of both classes. So essentially it's a movement to music class that is rock and roll themed. So it's really, really fun. So it's rock the house, just like it sounds. It literally is tailored so that it covers all ages. And so I love it. Sometimes we're doing this, the Zoom, and I'm looking at the participants, and parents come in and they start doing the dances and stuff like that. And we do some wellness, like yoga, breathing, that kind of thing. Just something to give us like a brain break and a way to move. And then we speak to each other and that kind of thing. But again, I don't have a dance background. So I do okay, if we're doing a cha-cha slide or something, I can pull off demonstrating that. But I didn't want our dancers to lose the ability to follow along with choreography. And so that's when Katie came in and really saved me. And our other pals as well are moving in as peer instructors. So I take a couple of segments, and Ryan, Katie's brother, he does a warm-up segment. Gabriella sends in videos so that we can have our wellness and yoga at the end. And Emma does this like awesome dance game that's Kiss, my favorite band. It's Kiss themed. So I love that. But Katie came in with these two segments that she's created, and it's allowing our kids to have a choreographed dance that they can all do. And she has just really come in and done this awesome choreography. And so there's kind of like I would say like contemporary, or kind of like, I would say hip hop, but it's kind of all set to rock. But the kind of dances we were doing in Everybody Dance Now. And because ballet is Katie's passion, now we have a rock and roll ballet segment. And so that has been really, really cool. And our kids are learning. So I can see them on the Zoom. They're attending to her every week. They get a little better. They're memorizing their dances. So do you want to talk about that, Katie? Like what it's been like to move up into that dance teacher role?
Yeah. So going on like from in-person to Zoom, there was like it was very hard because the kids don't have like the in-person connection that we can give them in class. But as I was like teaching the dance, I could be able to see like the children like learning the dance and actually getting the steps, and like me attending to their needs and what they want. And so with this new ballet segment, I feel it's really good for them because ballet is really good like to have to earn flexibility and just like to have in general. So like teaching them the terminology and like the dance moves to help them to further improve their dancing has just like been so amazing to like just watch them be able to learn, and then to see like them be able to like memorize their dances and like express themselves through dance has been a very good class to see.
I love it. And I gotta say, for all of us who are panicking about the distance learning in the fall, anytime that we can get our kids onto a Zoom and having fun and get them moving their bodies, it's only going to help with whatever the boring, dull thing is the school is having them do. So, because making it reinforcing sometimes will help for the times that it isn't reinforcing. So you guys, because we're running out of time here, how can somebody connect and do this with their kiddos? What time of the day is it? What days of the week? What's the key?
It is on Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. Pacific time. So 6 p.m. California time, but anyone can join. If you would like, it's free. If you would like to sign up for a link to register for the webinar, you can email Miss Robin Rocks at yahoo.com. So it's MSROBINROCKS at yahoo.com. And so if you just put Rock the House or Zoom in the title, I will send you a link to register for our webinar, and you can join us every week. It's a lot of fun, and I'm really excited about everyone participating. Distance learning is a challenge, but we can take the positives from it. And I love what you said, Shannon. It is going to help out with distance learning, because if we can get our kids on there, and having fun with Zoom, they will be less reluctant to get on when maybe the content isn't as fun. And it's a nice opportunity for them to really hone their skills, because I think what we're seeing is, while we're missing a bit of the social component, we are seeing much tighter progress with dance, because our kiddos, I think, are conducive to attending to a screen. So they're getting, better at their dance moves and getting better and better at learning to interact over the screen.
And so go over the email again. Is it MS or MI?
MS, like Ms.
Ms. ROBIN. Yeah.
Rocks at yahoo.com.
At yahoo.com. So MSROBINROCKS at yahoo.com. And so that would be tonight, that in just a few hours. So for those of you on the East Coast, it's at 9 p.m. But for us on the West Coast, it's 6 p.m. on Thursday nights. And, somebody wrote in and said, how do I get a peer buddy for my son? If they want an actual peer buddy in the sense that, they're there and prompting them, that they've got to live in Fullerton. Is that correct?
They have to live in Fullerton, or if someone knows, for example, what started all of this was Leanna from CF Dance, was a business owner in Fullerton. She was a supporter of Fullerton Cares. she saw a need, I offered to jump in and help out too, and she helped out, and we did a thing. So sometimes it's just maybe about even knowing how to talk to people. And I think one way we can harness the pandemic is, Katie talked about how busy she is, and she is, and we all are. And being kind of stuck at home and utilizing Zoom is something that we can work into a really busy schedule. And so we can start small. If, for example, the person that wrote in that wanted a peer buddy, maybe you can talk to some folks at church or in your community that have a nice kid, and they're just a nice, sweet kid. And maybe you can start with some just really quick Zoom meetings, and they can talk to each other and then expand. Or if your child is nonverbal, someone can, talk to your child, like how Katie will read stories for her buddies and things like that, and starting out small and then building on it. And then one other thing I wanted to say is, a lot of times I'll get new participants in the Zoom and they'll just watch, and then I don't see them again. And so for parents, I want to encourage you, let your kids just, if they're not doing the dance moves or don't seem to be participating, but they will watch it, I would encourage you, let your kids watch it, because it's, they'll acclimate. It's just like real life. If we have to go somewhere and it has to be a successful outing, and my oldest son has never been, we try to go one time first, just to get him used to the surroundings. And this is kind of the same thing. So maybe they'll watch for a bit. Of participants that have been new to the Zoom that have hung in there, I've seen their kids just watching, or maybe watching for a little bit and then walking away, and now they're participating.
There we go. So keep on keeping on is the key here. Can I tell you, we're out of time, but how much, Robin, I think you know this, I think I've told you, I just adore you. I have so much respect and admiration for you. You are an amazing professional, an amazing expert, an amazing mom. I just always feel better when I get a chance to be around you. You are just light on this planet. And thank you, Katie, for being the person that you are. It gives me so much hope to know that you are someone who's going to inherit this earth and be in control in this earth. And oh my goodness, don't we need more people like you? Colleges are going to fight to have you. And businesses are going to fight to have you to be their employee. And let me tell you, if you ever need a recommendation, let me know, because I'll be happy to say what an amazing person you are. So gosh, thank you both for spending time with us and for loving our kids the way they need to be loved. I just appreciate you from my heart. Thank you so much for being here, you guys.
Thank you for having us. I hope you'll have us back soon.
Anytime. And seriously, I am challenged. I know you're busy, but that book, come on now. All right. And Katie, you get, tell her you want to write a chapter in it. So there we go. I am such a pushy broad today. But okay. Thank you guys for being here. I got to close out the show, so I'll let you guys go, but I'm going to keep talking. We got some questions we have to get to. Thank you so much for being here. Bye-bye.
You're very welcome. Bye.
Bye-bye. Really quickly want to get to, because you guys have been having a conversation with yourselves online, and I love that, about what's routine and what's normal. And when we were talking before about what's ritualistic behavior, and somebody wrote in and said it's basically routine. I would argue, though, that we all have routines, right? Ritualistic is when you have to do the routine. Okay, so there's just a little bit of a difference there. Like, you get upset if you can't do the routine in the way in which you do it. I have a routine every morning that's changed in the pandemic. And, we have 2 dogs that are getting acclimatized to each other, and I need to do, everything. It all has to get done. But some days I do it in one order, and some days I do it. Sometimes it messes me up when I change the routine, but I don't have a meltdown. And we all are like that, right? When it's a problem, when it's part of a disorder, is when you have to do it that way. Now, there are times when I go to drive out the driveway and I have to come back and I have to check the doorknob 3 times. That is a disorder. We can't leave until I do it. For me, that's OCD, not autism, but I'm just saying there is a difference there. So I do want to point that out. But when we talk about something being normal and being abnormal, I like the phrase that normal is a setting on the dryer. I don't know what normal is anymore, but I know when something is stopping me from doing something, and I know when something is stopping my son from doing something. And those are the things that I'm interested in working on. If I want to be able to leave without checking the doorknob 3 times, then I want to work on that. If I don't care, if it's not stopping me and it's just my routine and I do it every morning and I'm not holding myself up or anybody else, who cares, right? But when it's stopping me, like if it's an emergency and I need to leave, I want to be able to leave without touching the doorknob 3 times. How many different things on the DSM make a child autistic, and what are they? Is DSM-5 or DSM-6? Can I look it up online? Yes, you can look up the DSM-5. That is the current diagnosis for autism, and they have 3 different areas, and they list a bunch of different things in those 3 different areas. We could do a whole show on that. Unfortunately, I don't have time right now, but check it out. And if you are interested, you can go back and look at the DSM-4, was it R, to see what it changed from and to in 2013. It's old, so, but it is different than what it used to be before. Okay. Looking for young adult groups, independent living, and inclusive communities. Do you have any information on how to get my hands on information in a local area? I don't know where you live. And it really depends on where you live. I can tell you that during the pandemic, there's more and more places that are having things online. I would really encourage doing the peers program at UCLA online with your young adult to learn how to be social. There will be a cost associated with that. It might be covered by your insurance. I don't know, but that's peers, P-E-E-R-S at UCLA. I'd love to get somebody on from there to talk about that. I think I'm going to reach out and see if we can do that. Also, I really want to recommend, we had Chelsea Darnell on the show at the very beginning of the pandemic. She's an amazing young woman. She leads a group every Saturday night at the Ed Asner Family Center. They're doing it online right now. It's free. And it's called Movie Chat with Chelsea. On Monday, she tells her audience what movie their homework is to watch. They watch the movie. And on Saturday, a group of young adults on the spectrum get together and they start by talking about the movie. But from what I hear, it is the most amazing social group. It's free. Go to the Ed Asner Family Center, check out all the free classes that they have available, because there's a lot of stuff there, but definitely check out the Movie Chat with Chelsea. She's amazing and I adore her. Okay, what else we got here? So when talking about the routine, when a child persists in doing things a certain way and they have to do it that way, that's what we want to address, because that's going to get in the way of going to school. That's going to get in the way of having friends, right? We want for them to be as flexible as possible. So we're going to work on that. Okay. Yeah, but normal is a setting on the dryer. Okay, what else have we got here? Okay, great. Somebody already registered for the Rock the House. And thank you so much for sharing the info for the dance class. I think my 12-year-old son on the spectrum might like this. Have a good day. You too, we're out of time. I want to let you know that tomorrow we're playing an oldie but a goodie. Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I don't even know which episode and who the guest is. I'm going to be back on Monday with Bonnie Yates. If you have questions because you're going through something about distance learning or the IEP, or your school has said something, we're looking for very specific questions. Write to me right now, because I got to send the questions to Bonnie today and tomorrow. s.penrod@autism-live.com. Give us your questions. Let us know, if it has something to do with school in this fall and IEP. Want those questions for Bonnie. We're looking for specific, and be as specific as, tell us what they offered you, what you said, where you're at, what you want. Bonnie likes lots of information. All right, email that to me. Do it now, and I'll see you on Monday. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.